for HOK out of St. Louis. They let me live here because everybody traveled off. Until I retired. Last year. Yeah, it was time.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Just thinking if I was a consultant, pretty good bill for that. Yeah, no, 5,000.
Thank you for the comments.
Oh, yeah. No,
I
it's,
was
I
able
mean,
to like quickly get
I had just been teaching all the way through TIF class, and we had the guys in from Madison explaining their TIF policy. So have you read their TIF policy and underwriting criteria?
No, we looked at like 10 other policies, but I don't think we had our hands
Show up
on
for
it.
these now.
Yeah.
And I figured,
So I'd say theirs and lacrosse is probably two of the best.
whatever,
You
20
gave us
years.
the scorecard.
Yeah.
As anybody, but
And I think in that case, they have more projects, and I don't think we need a scorecard, I think A, which is what he's basis that we do this with.
So
oh,
Yeah, no, and I think it's,
we got 1 more minute.
gotcha.
59.
Yeah. Well, I learned how to do this how to turn it on last time from my friend here, but in terms of how to
Abby?
manipulate it, I have a lot to.
Well, welcome you all to the Milton City Hall. It's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting of the Milton Plan Commission for Tuesday, December 10th, 2019 to order. And the first item is the roll call.
Mayor Barr,
Yeah,
Murray. Here. Paulson.
here.
Ramsey.
Here.
Slavish.
Here.
Tyson.
Here.
And Hubbard is absent.
all right. So it's not 7:15, so we can go to the public hearing. Let's go to the item number 1, which is the minutes from 11:26.
And
Regarding the minutes, did you guys incorporate my comment about what I did not want to see? Because it stated that I did not want to see metal roofs or shed roofs, which I didn't say. I don't want to see metal walls, because I don't like the industrial look of our housing.
yes,
That was the comment.
there were 2 recommended changes to the minutes. Kitty mentioned one of them. The other is under item number 2, delete contingent on resolution of engineering staff recommendations from the motion. That was not part of the motion for that item.
And I'd like to add, I was in very much favor of the concept review for Studio West. It isn't mentioned anywhere, so I'd like to add that too. So it's a very good development. So anyway, so with those
Move approval as
changes-
amended.
That's the language that will be in the minutes.
Okay, I guess one more.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion minutes as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. We are on to item number 2, sign design review builders first source 1987 Pleasant View Road. So do we have anybody from the builder source 1? I think the sign looks pretty straightforward.
I would move approval. Sorry.
Okay,
What's
need a
second?
second?
I'll second that.
Hold on. Mark's
So-
pulling it up.
Well, I had it here and I closed it. I haven't done the packet for a while, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. So the sign looks good, and main thing is that how could we make that store more popular as it used to be? I don't know. This is, if there's anything city could do to help them. Is anybody here from First Source here? Okay, well, any other
Is it the
comments?
traffic access to the site,
Oh, yeah,
do you think
yeah, that's it.
causes the trouble?
There always has been. I don't know what the issues are
Right off of
when,
Pleasant View?
The reason this is before you tonight is because it's a new sign in a new location, and we'd bring those to the Plan Commission for design review approval. It's a very straightforward application, and we are recommending approval.
yeah, it is just, this place used to be humming with activity and not anyway. All those in favor of the motion to approve the sign design review for builders first source, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Okay, now to item number 3, concept review for office building, SEIA Incorporated, 1600 North High Point Road. Abby? Or-
Mark,
Okay.
prepare the staff comments for this item.
Okay,
So here, this is located at the corner, northeast corner of the Beltline and Greenway Boulevard, accessed off of North High Point Road. See the green arrow shows where this is located. It's labeled Badger Books on the map. The zoning is B1 in pink here. The gray color is the existing building, the footprint of the existing building that's on the property. And in your packet, I had some photos showing existing, the conditions around the site. So this is the surrounding area here. So here's the site, looking towards the Beltline. This is looking west. So what's before you tonight is a concept proposed by Tom Sanford, who is interested in exploring a, oops, I thought I was going up, going down.
You have to talk while you're running the machine there.
Yeah. So is a concept that for a four-story mixed-use building with a ground-level retail, like a coffee shop, for example, residential on the second and third floors in the form of apartments, and then office space on the top floor. And so the details regarding square footages, number of units would be determined, will be determined largely by the amount of off-street parking he's able to incorporate. He's planning to have the parking underneath the building as much as possible, but there would be some surface parking on the first level as well.
so why do you say the off-street parking will determine this? What is,
Well, because we have a parking ratio that's required for commercial buildings such as this, so we
and there's
require.
no street parking there in any case, or is there?
Correct, so the parking standards pertain to the off-street parking. So remember
Okay.
the Addison, we had
Yep,
a certain
yep,
number, so we
yep.
require a certain amount of parking
Okay,
for, now what's appealing about this concept is the mixed-use nature allows shared parking arrangements between the residential, for example, you park at night, and then when you leave in the morning, the space is available in theory for office users, or the coffee shop, if it becomes a coffee shop. And so,
He's proposing underground stalls as well?
yeah.
How
yeah.
many?
Those
Concept.
details, it's just concept, yeah, very conceptual. There would have to be we'd have concerns about number of driveways. He's showing 3 in concept, and that we feel is too many. There's some utilities that may need to be relocated on the site. You see them labeled here at the bottom of this map. It says utilities above 12 parking. And then the biggest issue would be the need for a rezoning. This is in on the edge of a residential, single-family residential neighborhood. I've already heard from a nearby resident who has questions and potential concerns about this. So, but again, it's just here to see what you think of the concept. I think Mr. Sanford is here if you wish to hear from him directly.
okay, yeah,
So
go ahead, go to, identify yourself and go to the,
I
well,
probably stole your thunder a
okay.
little bit, but
so if you want to present it,
You have to use the
yeah, that's
microphone.
fine, but you have to use the
Just
mic, so.
For the recorder.
Okay, thank you. All right, my name is Tom Sanford. I have my own company. I'm a small developer based Madison, and I've never done anything in Middleton, so I'm kind of excited for this opportunity. This was hot off the press last night, so this is different than I submitted to Mark. Sorry.
yeah, it's okay.
It's more, a little bit evolved. Let me say a couple things. In the deaf world, you said, I had a stroke 4 years ago. That affects my speech sometimes, so I might stumble, but, you know, bear with me, okay? This concept is different than I submitted. Couple things, we moved the building west, or actually more north, to have 18 parking space for the retail, or coffee shop, or restaurant, something like that. And this, the main level, it's all parking. 14 parking space and 30 parking space underneath. So that is 44 parking spaces. And this is second and third floors. Right now, we're showing 9 apartments. And so every apartment could have 2 parking spaces right now. And that will leave 28 parking space for the commercial on the top. The reason that we want the commercial on the top is because belt line visibility. So signage for the commercial, and it won't, I think with the apartments down below the belt line, it won't be as noisy. Of course, it's set off from the belt line anyway, because this is the ramp, right?
Go up a little, Mark. Yeah, there.
So this is probably coffee or a small restaurant, neighborhood friendly, not a drive-through. I've done some Starbucks. You know, I'm not talking about that. This is a small restaurant or coffee, and this is their parking. So this is 2,000 square feet. This is the lobby. I think it should be more center for a hallway. This is kind of wasted space in the developer world. So we get more parking by have 2 levels, and I reduce all the retail or the restaurant space on the first floor. There was an article in the Capital Times. All the mixed-use guys that buildings on East Washington, they can't get the first floors rented. Tough. So smaller neighborhood, so that's perfect. If I had to lease all this, we wouldn't even do it. But now I have enough parking for everybody. And then hopefully this would be one tenant for the whole thing. But we could split it.
You mean the first floor or the fourth floor?
I'm sorry?
You said the one tenant for the top floor?
Or just the commercial
Okay.
on the top.
Okay.
Can you bring that closer? I can't see what, that's just a blowout of the
Yeah.
configuration. It's not, you're not building over onto Fox Ridge. No,
No.
Just showing the stories.
okay.
So, let me move here just for a minute. I love this view. I drive by this all the time and I just go, man, that's an awesome site. So it'd be more of a tower but it's right next to the belt line. I think this is the back door for Middleton, in my opinion. So we'll spruce it up. Hopefully this is more sexy than this.
Well, the question is, it's right next to the housing on the east side of the High Point Road. I mean, there are single-family homes. That's the biggest issue here, which I can see.
Right, I understand.
And when you go to the fourth floor there, you're going to be looking in people's, living rooms and stuff, so.
Well, this is on an island, in my opinion. There's no homes around here anyway, just streets. It's on a peninsula. So I think that, I don't know, I mean,
Well,
I feel it's more secluded from the residential.
Okay, anyway.
there is
we will
the
look at it,
office,
so.
there is the office just, as Mark's showing it now, kind of southwest, the 2-story office. So if we go forward, just to address the mayor's concern, you would want to show us a rendering of what it would look like from the backyard of the
For sure.
neighboring homes. As you see here, there's a lot of trees, so I don't know if that's.
Yes. I
But
mean,
you think there's a market for apartments right on the Beltline?
apartments like
That
this.
was actually my concern. I'm starting to get very worried about Middleton continuing to put apartments and condos on the Beltline or overlooking, car lots with lights on all the time and that kind of thing. What I would think people would want to see is, I like the general idea, and I think that as a location, since it's already zoned business, might be something that would be good. And I know what you're saying, it has a very low-key, subtle kind of environment around it, but maybe what's more appropriate there than, instead of high density, or I mean, more residential is business, or, I mean, there could be other things, you know, that might fit that site a little better.
I think this property has had two offers and they both fell apart. And I can't do office here. I'm sorry. It won't work. So, you know, to me, in my world, everything, it's economic is the driver. So, I think this will be perfect with this neighborhood. I love this neighborhood. I have a client who lives in this neighborhood. It's a cool neighborhood. I think this will complement that neighborhood. It's not close to any houses. So, I mean, that's the whole reason that I'm here tonight, to take your temperature, right? Because we'll do all the plan, charrette, elevation, make it pretty, but I can't spend that money right now unless I know that you guys are on board. So, and I understand it's different.
Is that the old Fox Ridge Chiropractic?
I'm sorry?
Is that what that was? I haven't heard of Badger Books, but.
Approximately how many
There used
residents,
to be a Sprint print.
how many apartments would you think would be in there?
9 each floor.
9, so 18.
So Tom, would this new plan move from 3 driveways to 2 then? I know that was a concern that.
Yeah, we've got 2 in this rendering. This is the entrance for the first floor parking, and then this is, the dotted line is the garage, or the underground garage. So it's bigger than the building footprint.
Where are those driveways relative to what's there now? That Mark's showing on the screen, just
You can't see the screen, but
the 2 driveways.
here's the, I'm just showing an air photo right now.
Okay.
Do you know the driveways you're proposing, where are they relative to the existing ones?
The existing ones,
They're gonna be obviously,
You
they're
have only
different.
one existing one from what I can tell, right?
there's 2.
There's
There are
2.
2?
Yeah, this driver is here, and I don't know where the other existing is, but both of these driveways, one was after this medium strip, and the other one here, so we have the same thing.
What do you envision your mix to be for the residential? Studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom? What do you envision that mix to be?
Well, in this, we've got 2 bedrooms, 2 2-bedrooms, 1 bedrooms, and 1 studio.
I guess he's still
Let-
trying to work it out, so he doesn't have those details. I mean, he submitted one, now he has a few changes, so.
So let's all
Seconds.
agree that what's there now is
Subpar.
Yeah,
it's not Class A office, right? And a mixed-use project is probably the best use for a tight site like that, but I really wonder what soundproofing you're gonna use for apartments. I mean, usually when we have stuff that close to an arterial, it stepped back a little bit, but I mean, this is not just an arterial, this is the belt line.
And it's going to be, the residential are going to be raised to be at about the level of the belt
Yeah.
line. Because they'll be second and third.
So
And just
that's the
more on the
reason-
land use, you're right about, the traffic impact of a drive-through is just not gonna
Sure.
work, because that turn right onto the belt line.
Honestly, I think this site is amazing for apartments. Rent very, very quickly. My opinion. Everybody wants to live in Middleton, even me.
Is it near a bus line?
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Is there a bus line?
Yes.
Where's the nearest bus line?
It's here. It's, you can see it on the It was on the Google map here a moment ago.
Yep.
Sorry.
Okay.
See the bus stops here?
Right.
In fact, this has got very convenient bus service. Route 71 in the morning has got 4 buses that come, four every half hour, and then in the afternoon coming back from Madison.
The reason I ask is we've had a habit of, when someone's doing infill apartments near a bus line, that you may not have to offer 2 stalls per unit. I mean, unless,
Now,
Yeah, but you wouldn't necessarily
wouldn't
be
have to.
required, is what he's saying. So,
we've got enough. 2 stalls per apartment unit.
Yeah, that's actually a lot, so yeah.
yeah. And I would note that we have apartments, I used to live here in Valencia Place Apartments right here. And also the Parmenter Circle Apartments are proximate to the Beltline. So I would agree the market is, there are people who are willing to live in apartments, in housing by the Beltline.
No, the Parmenter Circle is quite a bit away from the Beltline, as Valencia is also, right?
Well, but the noise is not going to vary. Anyway,
is it-
it's not worth
oh, okay.
getting into the details of it maybe, but the
Yes.
noise falls, and believe me, I could hear it.
Michael, you have questions for Tom?
Well, I just, the question about the retail, so have you thought about if that's gonna be on the south end of that first floor, the 2,000 square feet, how people are gonna get out of there? So if you're off the belt line,
Yeah.
come off the belt line and wanna go to the retail space, how are you gonna get there with that median? I mean, it's kind of because really the only entrance you can get into would be on the north end. I'm just trying to, if you've thought about that, traffic flow and access to the retail space.
I mean,
There would be room here to turn.
you have
Talk
to
about
pull
making
a
a
U or
U-turn.
whatever.
A
but-
U-turn, Mark?
Well, I
Or
can't
left-hand.
see, yeah, he'd make a left-hand turn here.
And
I-
ends halfway through.
Yeah, I can't see the drawing, so I don't know what he has.
Can you show on the street view, Mark, to show where the median ends?
Yeah, that would be, fine. If that, I
Mark?
didn't,
Okay, yeah, I heard you, I'm just looking at, the median ends right about, well, I can go to Street View.
Yep, you can see the median there, so.
Well, maybe we could reduce this, have a curb cut there.
well,
No.
the point is that if that median extends as far as that shows, there's really only access to that north entrance if you're traveling north there, right?
Right.
I don't know how you get back to the retail space on the south end.
And there may need to be a traffic study, because I know for people who live in Fox Ridge, they're coming off the Beltline,
Sure.
going left on High Point and then turning in. So if you have traffic stacked up there trying to turn into the retail,
I'm sure
don't know.
we would recommend a traffic study. I'm sure our engineer would, I would guess he would think it meets that threshold too.
If I can say this, I've done a lot of retail. Coffee and restaurant is trickle in and trickle out. It's not going to like a movie and everybody going at the same time. So at 2,000 square feet, there's not a,
not a lot of traffic.
yeah, small traffic. So, and again, we could do a curb cut here so they can turn here or reduce this. I'm not sure why this is here actually, but I'm not a traffic engineer.
Marco?
Which, I think it was designed to stop people from coming off the Beltline and then trying to do a U-turn to get back. Right? Or is it just to kind of slow traffic down, because suddenly you're off the Beltline or a commercial area west, and now you're entering a residential? So the design is to
Okay.
kind of give it that, scale it back.
Perhaps it could be shorter and achieve the same purpose. I mean, that's.
Public Works Committee would have to look at that,
So do you
and that would
want-
have to be at the developer's cost.
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, do you want to refer it to some committees, or you think you have enough input here by now? So I think it needs a lot more work, right? I don't think,
He's just here for concept.
Yeah, yeah.
We'd want to have a
Yeah,
full
the
site
input,
plan before
yes.
we send it to.
Yes. Any other questions? Kitty, you have any questions? Or
Just the one about putting residential along the highway. It's a whole lot closer than the ones we've already got, and those are, as Mark says, there's some demand, but there can't be that much demand people who want to live with headlights coming at them all night long.
Yeah.
Well, the building's offset a little bit, so there wouldn't be, well,
There wouldn't be headlights.
unless you lived on that south corner, you wouldn't have headlights.
I mean,
Everyone coming south, all those headlights would come into your windows.
we could move it
I don't think so.
a little bit more.
But the belt
This is a
line,
10,500 footprint, and we had 96, 75, but again, I need enough revenue to build this thing.
Yeah.
It's not cheap.
of course.
So, and my daughter, she graduated from Chicago, and her apartment is right against the, so in Chicago, it's nothing, but here it's different. One other thing, Mark, maybe you can show a street level that shows the utilities,
In the drawing that you provided, or you want the street view?
street view.
You can see them
Please.
very clearly. No,
What'd I do?
Whoa,
that mouse is.
there it is. Okay. So those things live on the lot,
Yep.
we can work around it. We'll have to make more pretty. Of course, that's a developer cost. But it'd be great if we could move those. I don't know if I think this right away. Mark, do you know
No.
this?
It is.
I don't know if we can get that. Yeah, I mean, that's all right of way because that's the outline of your lot is, you're showing the outline of your lot there.
Okay.
But I don't know the, oops, that's not why is that a PowerPoint?
So
That's
that's a
DOT.
minor detail. We'll work around it.
I think before we go too
see how
far,
right the
we need to
right-of-ways.
have a neighborhood input there. I don't know whether you talked to anyone there or not, so,
Yeah, I'm happy to come back.
yeah, I think you need,
Talk to the neighborhood.
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, it's very important that, what they think of it, so.
Sure.
Any other question? Yeah.
Just wanna make one point, and that is that this site, is one that's been on the market for quite some time. And we have had several people come into the city and request meetings about it, and then they've gotten far enough along to decide that they're not interested, and they've walked away, and that's happened more times than I can count. So I just wanted to point out that the site does have some significant with it.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
And
The other thing is we're looking for some TIF help here. Even if we have TIF for the parking,
Is it in a TIF
the
district?
number do not look great right now, but, we'll refine the concept. But again, I need to understand where you guys at. I won't get that answer tonight, but hopefully as we move forward.
What would be your basis for TIF?
I'm sorry?
What would be your basis for your TIF request?
Well,
I mean,
What are the unusual costs? Or
what are
yeah.
the extraordinary costs that you foresee?
well, when we have the numbers, we'll have that conversation. Honestly, I've done this before, so it's better to get in front in the beginning to talk with you guys so you know about me and this potential project, and we'll get those numbers to Abby, and we'll have that conversation.
Yeah, maybe there's a new TIF, documents going through, so maybe give him a copy, he can look at it. So, this will be we're going to vote on it a little bit later, and then it goes to the council. So we didn't have this policy in the past, but this is going to be a TIF policy, so which we're going to try to adhere to, so.
And one of the recommended goals within the TIF policy is for redevelopment projects and kind of focusing more on redevelopment rather than greenfield development, because redevelopment, like this project, has more site constraints and other issues associated with it, including likely demolition of the existing.
And with the inability of it, it's not been redeveloping on its own, so there might be some blight aspect to it.
It's definitely got site constraints, that's for sure.
Yep.
I wouldn't,
Okay, any other questions which you have which you would like to be answered? I think talking to the neighbors is number one, and then other things, so. Okay, anybody else want to provide more input to Tom? Okay.
well, I mean.
Thank you.
I think you're gonna have a tough time, and you're gonna have to,
Every Sanford deal is the same.
Tough. I think we would, generally, I think we would agree that there's a higher and better use for this site than what's there currently. I think we're trying to say that, we want to find a way to support some redevelopment here.
Yeah.
Just a matter of finding what is their right use. I don't want to speak for the whole entire
right,
planning.
no, that's right.
Okay, I agree with Michael, so.
Perfectly said.
Okay, thank you, Tom. So we're gonna move on to it's
Thank you.
beyond 7:15. So we're gonna go to the public hearing part. And this is the item number 1.
Okay, sounds good.
So this is the request for rezoning to general implementation plan for Pheasant View Park Apartments, Greenway Central, lots 3 and 4. And everyone has 3 minutes to speak, and maybe you will take care of the time.
Yes.
So we're going to start with Gayatri Dinakaran. Gayatri Dinakaran, please.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, come to the mic, identify yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, good evening. My name is Gayatri Dinakaran, and I'm a resident of Middleton for the past 17 years and at Bella Casa condominiums for the past 14 years. And when we got this communication, obviously it raised a lot of concerns. As you can see, most of the people here are my neighbors. So we all have pretty much the same concerns about this project, given the size. Given the fact that we lived, our building is near a place which had a quarry earlier where the blasting was, that was the first concern. If this project is going to require blasting, what is the effect it's going to have on our building and our neighboring buildings as well? And if that blasting is going to have effects on the water table and other stuff, that was the first part. And the second part was more to do with how the natural layout of the topography of the place itself is going to be impacted by the new rezoning of the new project. There's been a lot of deforestation. Bella Casa is right behind a small hill, and there's been significant deforestation there. And my concern was if this is going to impact that, causing maybe erosion, because our building is right below the little hill. So that was one of them. And another thing was the traffic that it's going to bring once the project is complete and people move in. We already have a lot of traffic with all the new offices. Everybody knows getting in and getting out between 4:30 and 6 is hard on Greenway Boulevard. So that was another concern. And is there going to be significant improvements to the infrastructure if this project is going to go up? These are all some of the concerns that was raised by some of my neighbors, and I'm voicing them here. And I'm sure some of my other neighbors are going to be talking on the same things. But these are the 4 major things that I wanted to bring up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gayatri. So the next one is Edward Hanson. He opposes it, but he does not plan to speak unless you want to, so you're welcome. So the next one is Rosemary, and she didn't say whether she wants to speak or not. Come on in, yes. All right, the way to go.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm Rosemary Wyborn. I've lived for 10 years at Bella Casa in 307, and I have the same concern as Gayatri already said, but I have some questions, and I would like to know if you can answer them for me. And the first one is, was there, before the property was bought, a testing done to see if the hill can sustain the blasting?
Okay.
Because we had blasting from the quarry 10 years ago, and every time they blasted, the building shook. And that is about a mile away from us, and now we're right in the back of it. And my concern is that what would, if the testing was done, if so, what were the results? If it was not done, what will be the outcome if that hill comes down during blasting, and what happens to our property? Because we're all owners of those buildings, an apartment or condos, and that's a major concern. And like I said, the blasting from the quarry was a mile away, because I drove it, a little bit more than a mile, but anyway, now we're right in the back of it. And like I said, I want to know what happens if the builder starts building, and all of a sudden a blasting occurs, especially with 3 levels of below the surface garages.
Mm-hmm.
And what will he do if he gets the concession to build there?
Mm-hmm. You have 2 more points, right? You said you
Okay.
got 4 points.
Yeah, then now the other thing is, I do have a suggestion for him,
Mhm.
if he does want to do it. Why doesn't he all buy us out, and then he can build 2 14-story buildings?
Okay. Thank you, Rosemary. So, okay, so the next one is Nancy, and she opposes it and does not plan to speak. Is that true, Nancy? Yes. Okay. And the next one is Rob Hadsett. He also opposes it, and he wrote some notes at the back. I'm concerned with the potential damage to the tree-covered hillside behind our building. Also, if underground parking is part of the plan, the blasting will very likely damage on building and condo units. So these are his comments. And besides this, there were 2 other emails.
Yes.
And
So there were 2 emails that were sent from our office manager to the Plan Commission this morning. One of those, oops, sorry, I still have my timer going. One of those was from,
Nancy Rockreiner.
yep, and Sue and Phil Ingen, also at Bella Casa, Howard and Suzanne Doty. And then this afternoon, we received an email in opposition from Jenny Knockreiner at Bella Casa, Jennifer and Richard Fuhrer, also at Bella Casa, and those 2 that came this afternoon are before you, printed. The other 2 were just, no.
So the I will just read parts of the Jennifer's comments that people live in Milton for, among other things, the green space, trees, bike trails, Pheasant Branch Conservancy, which we are paying to restore. The tallest building in Milton presently is 11 stories, 14 stories on a hill after moving most of the trees, and at least part of the bike trail does not fit the neighborhood of primarily 1 to 3 story buildings. It is so out of place. In addition, 14 stories on a hill will make a Milton skyline look like an obscene gesture. For all these reasons noted above, we are adamantly opposed to rezoning for anything that requires cutting most of all the trees of the property, losing the bike trail, and blasting for underground parking on the unstable hill. Milton should keep its current reputation. High-rise buildings are in Madison. And the second email from Ginny Nachreiner is, I am very concerned about the possibility of having a 14-story residential building on Pleasant View Drive. I live in Bella Casa condos and have been told that the last time any sandblasting took place, it resulted in cracks in the walls of our condo building. Sandblasting for a 3-level garage would be questionable considering the location and surrounding buildings. Any building constructed on Pleasant View Drive and back of Bella Casa condos and Lee Silva apartments would greatly disrupt the lovely wooded path we have through the woods. People take this path all the time in the summertime, especially people on their lunch breaks from work and people walking their dogs. Any disruption of our woods and the walking path would be a huge inconvenience. So just for the information, that path would still stay there. I sincerely hope that these things are taken into consideration before allowing a developer to build on this site just for the sake of money. So other two you want to read, or should we just enter in the record? So anybody else who wants to speak?
Do you want the other two? I have printed copies.
Okay, I can.
Those are the ones emailed out to us yesterday
Yep.
or this morning.
Okay.
There's Sue and Phil. Let me forward them.
So this is a couple, Sue and Phil. We are out of the country or would appear in person to voice our objection and concern to this project. As owners at Bella Casa condominium, we would indeed be affected in a very negative way. The blasting would be annoying, if not damaging, but that ends. The ongoing concern would be the erosion and water damage caused by the deforestation on the cliff above our condos. Have you looked at that property from our side, the awesome retaining wall? Are they prepared to eliminate the potential water seepage into our underground parking? What about the additional traffic on Pleasant View Road? Where is the egress on top of the hill or at a blind spot? And then there's another person during the hearing. Where is that? This one here. Right. Howard and Susan Doughty. We are opposed to the construction of the 2010-unit 14-story residential building on lots 3 and 4 on Pleasant View Road. We, along with many of our neighbors, appreciate the green space and trail currently located in that area. We are very concerned about the potential deforestation of the hill and its effect on erosion and stability of the hill overlooking our neighborhood. We understand that the unit will have underground parking, which would require blasting during the construction process, and that could further add to the instability. We strongly suggest that Planning Commission reject the request for rezoning of Greenway Center lots 3 and 4. Anybody else want to speak? Yeah, please identify yourself and come to the microphone.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. My name is Karen Kranz. I'm a resident of Bella Casa, and I've been a resident there almost 3 years. And I have a couple of questions that I hope you can answer for me. The project appears to be directly behind the Bella Casa and Les Sylves complexes. I don't know, and you probably are aware of a year and a half ago when we had the catastrophic flooding in Middleton, how Greenway Boulevard became a river. And so my question is, has anyone looked at the environmental impact of this project being so close to A, the hill, B, all of these other complexes, and granted, on paper, the flooding that we had a year and a half ago was a 1,000-year flood or a 100-year flood. If it happens next year, that's an awful quick 100 years. And our complex is at great risk, not only for flooding, but as other people have pointed out, erosion. What is the results of an environmental impact study that this would do to that particular area? Not to mention the blasting and what it would do to the integrity of the structures that are at least 20 years old and things like that. So thank you for the opportunity. I just wanted to raise my concerns about things like that.
Thank you, Karen.
Can I ask you a question? Did you have much flooding in the condominiums?
One
was
of
it
our
mostly in the garages?
One of our garages had severe flooding, but the street itself,
Right.
the southbound lanes of Greenway Boulevard were a river, and I am not exaggerating.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody who saw the pictures and remembers that. So, right now we have a green space, we have soil that can absorb a heavy rain. You put a huge complex like that, and what is the plan for any type of water runoff and things like that should we experience heavy rains like that again? I mean, the damage to the existing buildings along Greenway Boulevard could be a lot more catastrophic than they were a year and a half ago.
Any other? Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
So there is somebody else? Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, you can come and speak here, please. Identify yourself. After this gentleman, yes.
My name is Mark Weitzel. I'm a new resident of Middleton, just moved here a year ago from your neighboring city of Madison, where I lived for 40 years. Does the city require an impact study on the traffic on Pleasant View Road for this?
Would for this rezoning, yeah.
Yeah, there would be, yes.
And I think this answers my other question. This is actually on this side of that bike path then, isn't it? It isn't on the Highway 14 side, it's on...
No, the bike path would be on the south, bike path would be between your building and the,
Yeah, you can actually see the bike path there on that picture there.
right here.
so.
It would
That's
Does
the
that
path.
stay?
Which, that will stay, yes.
And who, is that property county or city property?
Yeah, that's the easement, that's the city.
A portion of it goes on,
It's actually on the private development site, but in 1994, the city obtained an easement for a pedestrian path in that location. There is a tiny little corner of their site where Mark is showing that the paths crosses that corner that the city doesn't yet have an easement for, but the remainder of the bike path is on a pedestrian easement.
And is this the only piece of property that's developable in that area? Or is there other privately owned property up in there?
that's the only.
This is the only one?
I think everything else is
East of
developed.
Pleasant View Road, yes.
And has this individual or developer asked for TIF money or not? Or we haven't gotten that far?
They have indicated that there will be a TIF request associated with this project.
And this is in a TIF district?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
TIF 3.
Does it meet your TIF policy requirements, or you haven't gotten that far yet?
Well, we don't have a TIF policy yet. We have one on the agenda tonight, and the Plan Commission might be making a recommendation on the policy to the council. So before the policy is approved, it's hard for me to say whether it would meet it. I will say that the way that the city has been reviewing TIF for the past few decades is via the adopted project plans for each of the 2 TIF districts. The city has provided TIF assistance on other projects for parking below grade that is more than 1 level below grade. So it's possible that the city may consider providing TIF if the project moves forward for the underground parking components. But no decision has been made at this time.
Okay. Thank you for letting me talk. I'll be very brief. I love this area. I love this neighborhood. That green space is fantastic. There's been comments made already about how people use that. I really question whether or not this should be a TIF project, especially for 2 levels of underground parking at all. I don't think this is a TIF project, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Next person, please. Anybody else? You can come and speak, whatever you have.
Thank you again. I just wanted to tell you that since I've been living there for 10 years and Gayatri's for 14, we do have a lot of underground issues with water. We had one issue that lasted for several years with kind of surveys and everything else, and we called it the Big Dig because it was water that was running out of the parking lot into the street. And it really hasn't been solved as yet, but we spent thousands of dollars on surveys and all of that. We have, if we have a heavy rain, we have water in our garage, and some of our storage units were also affected by that. And so I just wanted to add that to it, because that's very important. And like I said, the Big Dig, we still haven't figured out, and certain things were done, but we still have the running of the water when it rains heavy.
Okay, thanks.
So, and that all comes from
Did you
the
get that name?
Yep.
hill.
I think I got your name the first time.
Oh, okay.
Rosemary.
Okay, anyone else who wants to speak? So how many of you, if you raise your hand, are from this Bella Casa? And probably all opposed?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so if there are no more takers, I'm going to close this part of the public hearing, and we will move on to the next item. Item number 4, this is the sign design review of Scooters Coffee, 6401 University Avenue. So this is also the difficult place. We want to do everything which we can to make you guys, the owners are here, right? We want you to do everything which we can to make you successful. So we're going to, this is the sign design review for Scooters Coffee, 6401 University Avenue. So you want to take it or?
The building owner has indicated that he'd like to speak.
Okay.
Mark prepared the staff comments.
Okay. Well, Mark, you want to go first, or should we go with the?
Well, usually we give a little staff report.
Okay, okay, all
So
right.
the applicant before, this application is for a new 35 square foot, 10-foot tall ground sign located along University Avenue. Their preferred location is along,
Excuse me, could you please speak outside if you don't mind? Thank you. Thank you, go ahead, Mark.
so the desired location is along University Avenue at the bottom right corner. The sign looks, so here's the sign that is on the, or will be on the existing building that they're reusing, and the ground sign.
The Chicken Run building, right?
The Chicken Run, exactly. And so this is what the proposed sign would look like.
So you said
And- yeah.
10 foot or 10 feet, but that looks, that's 19 there, right? Or you're talking about the sign itself on the,
I'm talking about the height of the sign.
Okay.
Is 10 feet. So our ordinance allows up to 10 feet. So it complies with our ordinance requirements. Our Public Works Director did express concern about making sure that the sign is located on private property, not in the right-of-way. And so we would want to make sure that that's a condition of approval. I forgot to list that as a contingency.
So
The
is that
right-of-way,
is that in a
I'm sorry.
right of way now, or as
The
it's
right-of-way
proposed?
is if you look very carefully here where I'm tracing the hand, the right-of-way is unusually wide here, in the sidewalk bends back, but the right-of-way is quite wide. So that is something that we will need to make sure is that it stays out of the right-of-way. The only way around this is to get a license agreement to allow it in the right-of-way, which, if that's an issue, that we would have to pursue
Actually,
that.
sir, you have to keep the door open.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, why is it a condition of approval? Isn't it assumed that, obviously, you can't install anything in the right-of-way unless you get a encroachment permit
License,
from the
exactly.
from the city
Exactly.
anyway?
I just didn't flag it.
Okay.
Sean caught it, and I forgot to put it in my staff comments, so.
Okay,
Show
so,
the street view to show us where this sign would be. Because then the other issue that was raised last time was with the redevelopment of the Sonic site. The concern was making sure that that redevelopment did not block. Oh yeah, that's where the sidewalk bends.
Yeah.
So it would be on that grassy.
So here's the bending sidewalk.
Yeah.
Right here, the existing driveway, so they want to have it on this southeast corner, or it's not southeast, but, bottom right corner, right here. But the right-of-way is
They own
back
that.
here. So this is where,
They own that land, that strip.
they don't own this part. The right-of-way is roughly here. The right-of-way does this. So the sign would have to be back a little bit unless they got that agreement from the city. So if that's, is there a representative here for this project? Yeah, why doesn't he?
yeah, please go ahead, comments.
Hello, my name is Dom Dacey. I'm with Grant Signs. We're the contractor with
Yeah,
scooters.
maybe you can raise the mic.
Sorry about that. My name is Dom Dacey. We're the sign, with Grant Signs. We're the sign contractor for Scooters Coffee. The reason we would like to place the sign at that location is there is a new development or a new apartment building going in where the Sonic was. That placement is ideal for us for visibility for that business. That building is going to be, I think it's a 25-foot setback, if I remember correctly, from the right-of-way is where that's going to be. We feel anywhere on that property that we place that sign is going to be limited, its impact on the street, from the street is going to be limited by that building. That's why we're asking to have that sign there. We also feel that it is consistent with the location of other signs on that stretch of University Avenue as we go up and down the setbacks or the lot lines for those properties along that strip take a weird jog for this property for whatever reason. I don't understand why, but that was something we encountered. That's why we're here requesting that we have that placement so we do get the most impact out of that sign. And we feel it is consistent with our neighbors' signs.
Any questions for,
The weird jog is of the sidewalk, right? Not of the street?
It's of the right-of-way. I'm not sure how that's determined relative to the sidewalk and the street.
Frankly, in my view, there's surplus right-of-way here. So you'll see it here in a second. So the right-of-way, if you look carefully, is right here, this yellow line. You see the yellow line, how that jogs? But the jogging sidewalk is actually back here. So the sign location would be here.
Actually, our desire is.
That's your desire, right?
Right,
But in order to keep it out of the right-of-way, the sign location would have to be here.
Yes.
Right. And
Any idea why that right-of-way jogs?
it's Old County. It's been.
Old County Road.
Yeah, this is a county road, and the right-of-way is wide along much of University Avenue. But in my view, we're never going to widen University west of here anyway. It's never going to be widened because of all the impacts to the houses, especially, as you get west
also
of
you
Willow
can't
Street.
just widen that small area.
No, right.
So Michael, you had some question?
No, well, I mean, when
I'd be in
we
favor of a license.
looked at Commonwealth's development, which was the apartment development on the Sonic site,
Mm-hmm.
I think before you came along, in jest, we said, well, hey, any interest in developing this site as well. And one of the comments that was made at that meeting is that there was a major utility line that was running, you know, on that, on the property line between those two. So, Mark, I don't know if staff's looked at.
The utility line goes this way, across the Sonic site.
Okay, because we did
it
notice
doesn't
there's a couple of
encroach.
transformers there on the property line, and wasn't sure if that was a concern in locating the sign in that location. But that's really my only comment and question.
Yeah, we certainly want to help you. I know this place has struggled for a long time. We want you to be successful. So within, you know, whatever the legal limits which we have here, so.
Wanting to physically reach and turn the building. And that's part of the problem, right, is
Yeah, the way it's located, so. And Jennifer, you have a question, looks like?
I'm wondering if we know, I mean, I know that on the Sonic site, the driveway and the access to University Avenue was adjacent to where they are looking to place the sign. How much space is between the property line and the proposed apartment building there? And is it indeed visually, is the sign something that you can't see based on the fact that the building is going to?
So the apartment building will have a 25-foot roughly setback from the sidewalk, as I recall. Oops, this is bad. I should have done over here. So that's about 25 feet.
Okay.
So basically, the edge of the existing, the driving, you know, right here.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, sorry.
then if that's as you drew it, and then him putting the sign out of the right of way
Still possible?
would be blocked.
Well, to some degree, yeah. I mean, it's not as visible as it would be here. That's without question. The driveway for the apartment building is also going to be here. It's going to be on the side of the apartment building instead of where Sonic had their driveway. So there'll be two driveways, fairly close together.
So the sign kind of has two issues then. One, if you put it back too far, you're not going to be able to see it. One, if you bring it forward, what Jen was asking, is there going to be sight problems then with people turning to go out?
Yeah.
What's your vision triangle? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we wouldn't want it to be right at the sidewalk. If the desire of the Plan Commission is to, if you're sympathetic to allowing the sign to be closer, there is the option of going through the Public Works Committee and getting a license agreement. We've done that before. It's not something we do often. It's not something we, try to do, but this is obviously an unusual circumstance.
So you have the second option of putting on the east side. Would that be, what is your opinion if it was on the alternate side?
We included alternative options because we do want the sign. We
Yeah,
find the sign is valuable to the business and driving business to location. Obviously, Desired is going to have the most impact, and we're looking at a reduced impact with our second and third alternatives.
Can I have the building?
Yeah, you can come over here and speak.
I've owned
Please.
this site since 1989. And when we bought the site, it was a shoebox-shaped building. We put the big hip roof on there for visibility. And at that time, Rusty's Bar was quite a ways set back. Now
Yeah.
Sonic is set back. The building itself was my monument. But now, with a huge building coming next door, very close to the street, and our building being set back, so the building's gonna disappear. So it's important that the monument sign have good placement, because that's very important. And the other thing I want to mention is the Sonic sign was missed by an awful lot of Sonic and potential Sonic customers. Because in the year before Chicken Run came in, I spent a lot of time working on that site, and there was an awful lot of people that turned around because they missed the Sonic sign. And so I'm afraid if they have to move their sign to the east side, the same thing's gonna happen, because they're gonna be they're gonna miss the driveway before they see this, before they decide to turn. And I guess what we're asking for, if we can put it in that right of way, is because
will be no closer to the street than the current Sonic sign.
Okay,
And it's sort of a no man's land. There's that little piece of land there that, that because of the jog in the lot line. The other thing is, part of that property, I think where it's now a rain garden, is not going to be developed by the new development either. So to address the question about the driveway and the visibility, that shouldn't be an issue.
so should we send it to Public Works, Abby? I mean, if they want to put it over there, I guess, so.
Well, I mean, we're trying to eyeball it based on Mark's cursor. We would want to see a very detailed,
Right.
or Public Works would want to see a detailed
Right.
engineering analysis of the sight lines, vision triangle, and where the Commonwealth building's going to be, because, I mean, the issue, I think, with the Sonic sign was, as you're going west, right, you would see the sign, which is after where you're supposed to turn.
Well,
And then if
people
you,
coming the other
people going the other direction
would miss it.
would miss it too, because they would see it and then, oh, can't turn, so.
Well, there's a Guggen sign that's not too far away, so that sort of blocked the Sonic sign as well.
On that subject, if you go back and look at the grassy area in front of your building, it extends forward toward University pretty far. Would it make any sense to consider locating the sign on that grassy strip?
My concern with that would be, from a staff standpoint, are you asking, can I comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
My concern from a staff standpoint, if there's a bicyclist or a pedestrian or jogger, let's say someone moving a little faster, that sign will obstruct.
That's not
From
what
the
I'm talking
driveway.
about. Go across their little driveway into the site, and there's a big chunk of, it's probably easier to see on the site plan that you had up a minute ago. There.
Right here?
Nope. Go north, or south of there. Straight south.
South. Is this?
South is up on the, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, go down toward, yeah,
Yeah, the drawing is.
right there.
So you're saying put the sign there?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
you
it
can see
will
it from
be,
both directions.
but it will be blocked by that new building, proposed building, right? They have those apartments coming up there.
I don't think so.
Okay.
That's even further back.
Oops.
The other issue is you don't see, when you're coming to that site from the east, you can't take a left until you get about where the driveway is. So it doesn't make any sense to have a sign, and it's not visible, because you're kind of coming over the hill anyway. You don't,
I think the
I think she means.
She meant here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's further away from, this is where they would be legally allowed to put it. They're requesting it to go here. Most of the time, the right-of-way line is a foot in from the sidewalk, 6 to 12 inches in from the sidewalk. If that were the case, like it is at the Sonic site and other sites to the west, they would have been allowed to be here and we wouldn't have any debate. So I think it's workable in this location as long as they get the necessary license agreement from the Public Works Committee.
I
Dan, you
think
had a
that's the,
question?
I think that's the question here. Are we good with that
And-
spot?
and the
then if
design.
we're good with that spot, then we would refer them to Public Works, where they would have to show all their documentation and get the sign off on from Public Works.
So you want to make that motion?
All right, I'll make that motion.
Okay, I second it. So let's send it to, any questions or
And
comments on that
approving the
one?
design, too,
So
is
So
part of
does
your.
the city own that piece of property? Is that the right of way?
It's now city, I believe the right-of-way has been jurisdictionally transferred, so that's all, it's city now.
With the transfer of the road.
The motion to is approve the sign review
Yes.
and
Endorse this
approve,
location.
endorse that location,
Endorse that
conditional
location.
on
Conditional upon Public Works
approval of,
of a license agreement.
Okay,
perfect.
so any further comments on that? Are you guys happy with that? Yes. Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. All right, we are now on to item number 5. Specific implementation plan modification for window graphics and signage, The Healthy Place, Apple Wellness, 6709 Frank Lloyd Wright.
This is
So,
bef-
Is the owner here too, or?
Yeah,
It's the guy from the commercials.
Yeah, well-
Right, Joe?
O'Brien.
Okay.
my CBD this morning.
All right, the way to go. I looked at these
Bring
rents.
samples?
Looks really nice. The building is good, so.
So this
Yes,
is
Mark.
before you because they were a bit overly exuberant with their signage initially. They have several locations. They did the same decals application on all their windows in all their locations, but that they didn't consider it signage, but we do from our sign ordinance standpoint, so I brought it to their attention. They removed the signs that were, these windows used to be entirely covered, so they removed the graphics, largely graphics, that were at window level, but they still have the signs that you see here in these photos. And so instead of requiring them to continue to remove them, I thought, well, let's see if there's some common ground here, if some of these can be treated as murals, which we've allowed on some, like for instance, Starbucks on Allen Boulevard, which was considered more art.
That was a public art project,
Yep,
actually.
yep, not a mirror.
It was a,
No, I'm saying, but the point is, the windows that was treated as a public art project, but in some cases, we've allowed murals and graphics to provide the
I was
screening.
just pointing out the distinction that it wasn't something that was initiated by Starbucks. It was initiated by
right.
the city.
Right.
By
fair
the
enough.
arts committee.
Deal
and they
with
had
the-
The point is, there's windows,
Sign issue.
we try to have windows, we encourage windows instead of blank facades, and sometimes, the floor planners inside a retail store want to have the windows blocked with their merchandise, so there's a need for them to cover the windows, so we try to encourage an aesthetic, appearance. So, anyway, so what's before you tonight is a request by the applicant to allow some of these that aren't signs, but more graphics, to allow those to remain. And it's here for discussion. Obviously, text and things like that are signs.
Okay.
Wait. So, show the dog and the happy smiling people again. Or, yeah. So that's not a sign, that's a graphic in your mind.
Design element?
It's a design, are you willing to call it a design element?
That's a sign.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
To come
go
up to
ahead,
the-
come to the microscope, microphone and
Thank you so much.
identify yourself and.
Yes, yeah, so Tim O'Brien, I own the Healthy Place, and just so you guys know, this is totally my bad. I did this on my 3 stores, and I didn't realize I had to submit for approval. So here I am going through this at all 3 locations. Our Sun Prairie one was fine for different reasons, but, so my goal is to actually block the sun coming in and hitting the supplements, because it's not good from the heat perspective. So from the outside, like curtains and stuff, doesn't necessarily look super clean cut. So we're definitely happy to do whatever you guys want us to do. Like, I'm really thankful to be in your city. So thanks for having me. And so if we need to switch or change, what have you, I think what Mark and I were working on is the current text fits hopefully from the measurements inside the 20% rule. And the hope was there's some part of the ordinance that allows for some sort of mural or graphic without any sort of marketing on it. So I'm totally cool with whatever you guys think. Have a lot of respect for you guys and what you do, and trying to keep Middleton as beautiful as it is. So I'll let you guys take it away from here. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, you might want to stay at the mic. So I live in this neighborhood, and we have an architectural review board. And do you have a letter from them as to their approval or denial of window graphics? Or has this been submitted to them?
So that's Dan Erdman, landlord of this location, says, hey, if the city and that other title that you
Milton
just...
Hills Architectural Review Board.
Yeah.
Milton Committee.
Yeah, so if those folks...
to say.
But, so no, it was not submitted through those formalities, and so that's where I think if I'm going to do due diligence, I should probably bring this to them. Is that what you're...
Yeah. So here's the issue, is because it's not just the city plan, it's the specific implementation plan and the general design plan of the retail in this new urbanist facility, which is this idea of at least replicating this older walkable Main Street idea, where people like to be able to see into retail buildings, right? And so in the same way that when Cobb's Grocery Store tried to block off some of those windows, there was issues with the neighbors and the design concept, because the idea is not to have a blank facade, but to promote walkability, that there's be able to view into the retail like the old Main Street sort
Sure.
of look.
No, I get it.
And so that's why you may run into some difficulty with the Architectural Review Board, because it kind of, so if you look at these other places, right, it's supposed to be, as you're walking along, you can window shop and peer in.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is, of course, you're right on the edge of the neighborhood and also adjacent
Not a
to,
perfect example.
right, to a more arterial street, right, so.
Yeah. And the
That's just-
sun kind of blasts in there, so we're probably gonna have to like keep these curtains down either way. So our hope was to get something that's a little bit more appealing to the eye. Do you think they would be the folks to ask, like, if we are able to get away with a mural graphic of some kind, to like maybe make it look old school, or old fashioned is a better word, like Pick and Save? Because I think the Pick and Save has those like a little bit more old fashioned
yeah,
look.
that's how
Pick and
we-
Save has the kind of fake old fruit.
We can be
farmer's
fake.
market. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of. On the other hand, when you have a glass facade right on a main street, you're always concerned about. I thought your main concern would be like people smashing the window to steal product, but
So,
I guess
Well,
it's not.
CBD oil is hot right now, you know.
well, I hope that doesn't happen. So,
No.
No, the
I'm gonna know who to come after, Kurt.
no, we don't want that to happen.
We don't want that to happen. But
No,
I mean,
I know, I'm not.
We
That's-
don't want
yeah.
it to happen anywhere in Middleton
Yeah.
or anywhere else. So.
But that's why some business owners don't want transparent windows.
Yes.
Oh, sure.
They don't
Yeah,
want
for
the
us, it's
product.
more the sun and to be, better looking than like a curtain or a drop down.
Okay, so what
All I'm
is
saying is I don't object to the graphic elements on the windows, but if you don't get review committee approval,
Yeah.
you can't do it anyway.
Reason I had asked that question too, but we don't enforce the Neighborhood Architectural
Right.
Review Committee, so,
That's for their.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, so for the,
Are you
Then-
amenable, I guess the question is, are you receptive to, the concept of having some of these, this clearly is not really a sign, it's more it's a design element, if you will, whereas some of these are signs. Are you receptive to this approach? I didn't want to go too far out without getting the support of the Plan Commission.
Yeah, so it'd be really helpful to us if we could keep what is up existing. Mark came by and, made sure we had everything pulled off down to a certain point. It'd help at least till spring to keep what we have up so that whatever we can, say it another way, like what we currently have up, it'd be great if we could keep that up.
so what do you, okay, Jennifer, what do you think?
I just want to clarify, so in the notes, it says the city sign code allows a business to cover up 20% of their ground floor window area with signs as long as they also do not exceed the overall allotment allowed per square, per street frontage. So if those graphics are design elements, are they counted as part of the street frontage?
I would say that, no, I would say the answer is no. I would apply that just to the text. That's my answer. So I think they're pushing it. I think some of these probably should be switched out and become graphic elements. I think that would be helpful because I think they're probably going over the 20% in terms of their overall street frontage. They have a sign you can't see it here, but it's just above this metal band. So I'm glad you pointed that out, Jen. So as long as you don't cover more than 20% of the windows and don't exceed the formula facing the street.
Yeah, and so since working with Fitchburg and Madison now on this like exact same thing, they all had the same kind of question, like, does a graphic mural, is there a distinction between text and advertising? And so what the other, Madison and Fitchburg, which again, you guys are different, so you might have a different setup, which is cool, is that the 20% applies to that which has text, and that the hope is, or at least Madison and Fitchburg are saying, is that these murals or can function as murals or graphics and not be part of that 20%.
Okay.
And part
so-
of the question is, if you were to, and the reason this is kind of weird is, suppose you were to kind of put them up on a stand, like 6 inches off the window, just inside, they would have the same function, and we wouldn't regulate them because they're not window treatments or signage.
Oh, can we do that?
I don't know.
I mean, that would be a great idea too. If that, you know,
I mean, that's why it gets really nitpicky about, like, if you were to offset them a little bit so that there's a gap, it's not a window sign, it just that's what Comps eventually did, is they put a display and they just moved it back a few inches so that it just happened to be blocking it.
Yeah.
But it's not.
See, I mean, here, not to pick on any other businesses, but what happens with this business is they always have their windows, you know, closed and obviously in this
But
picture.
it's a nail salon, so.
Well,
You don't,
I mean, the thing, anyways, the point is, we're trying to, as Kurt mentioned, we're trying to have this be a walkable.
Sure,
You know,
sure.
you walk by here and you can see that there's you know what the business is and you can see it, you know, so.
So I'm wondering if, since we do have that currently, I'm wondering if they would, the powers that be would let us. Is that you guys, by the way?
That's what,
The powers that be?
yes.
Okay.
no, we can
No.
approve something, but if the Neighborhood Architecture Review Committee
Okay.
says no,
So it's them more than.
Yeah, you're
It's
bound
not.
by what they say.
Why, I misunderstood.
because that's additional restrictions for that neighborhood.
Yeah. Just to understand, can I do something that's if they say no to this, can I do something that's 6 inches back, or is
Well,
that,
that will be non-permanent,
You'd have
I
to-
would imagine.
You'd have to go with them,
that's them again? Okay.
them again.
I don't think they would object to that.
I don't object to the design.
Thank you.
It looks nice, so.
Thank you.
Yes, Kitty, you have something.
I don't disagree whatsoever. I think the graphics are awesome, and I think it's well-designed, but I think it's advertising.
Sure.
And I think signage is what is intended, all the laws that were created originally, signage laws were intended to create a label so people know what's inside, not
Not to advertise.
to have
Yeah,
your
yeah.
eye go there because it looks great.
So then would it be helpful if I swapped out certain things, you know, like the locally owned and operated? Like if I swap that out just for that lime green blank color, right? Would that be closer to what you're hoping to see?
I would, most of the words are just well beyond.
They're not really necessary. is
Yeah,
what-
so I don't need the words, yeah.
It's
They're not-
advertising.
Yeah. No,
Instead
I-
of just
I
an
agree.
identification sign.
Solid panels.
If there
Yeah.
were colored solid panels.
Yeah, solid panels.
It would not be signage.
Oh, okay, because that would be really cool if we could get, I mean, that's the main goal with this whole thing, and then even for what we had to take off, which is another conversation for another day and to submit to that council. But the even solid colors would be really helpful, because it looks beautiful from inside, because you can see out, you have all these little pinholes, right? And from the outside, you know, it really causes the eye to come, like, take a peek at us, so. it
What's
helps.
interesting is at night, you don't even see these. Kurt and I had this discussion once where I thought the sign, I think you said the sign
You
was
drive by
removed.
one way, you can see it. You drive by another way, you could not.
Yeah,
Right.
so there's like a million little pinholes in it, so at
Because
night
of
the
the
light comes
reflection, or
The
through.
reflection and the angle, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
So I
cool.
told him the signs have been removed, and he told me the next day, no, they're not, they were up this
It depends on
Mark,
which side of
just
the
drive
street.
down this way of the street.
And I
check
thought he
that.
had been in there getting the CBDs.
Getting my 2 CBD, yeah, there you go. It's
You can never get enough
non-psychoactive.
CBD.
Okay, so what do we want to
Well, this is
do?
good feedback. I think we've got the feedback we need.
Okay.
I think what I'm hearing, and I agree with, I mean, I understand the comments, what you're saying. The direction is remove some of remove the text to bring it in compliance with their sign code, obviously, and that you're supportive, you're amenable to having the bands that we see here, and you're also, I'm hearing, supportive of the photograph.
I wouldn't think so.
Oh, you're not?
That's more of the signage, that's the advertising.
I agree.
So you don't want the photos?
No.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
Okay, so if there is that statute that talks about the murals, like, what is that mural that I could do it that way? Or is there just, because I respect you guys, you know?
20%, right?
Well, no, murals
color
wouldn't be a
band,
part of the
right?
text. Well, from what we were looking at, what Mark and I were chatting about, was there's a mural that is not the text. That's like outside of the text. So
No,
maybe it's.
obviously, this is text, this is advertising.
Yep.
Having having pictures, gets into sort of a gray area. Having colors in this, obviously, is more design.
Okay.
So that's where I wanted your.
Yeah.
The gray area is difficult because the picture could be advertising.
Right.
So I think it's an advertisement.
Okay.
They're all happy faces, which is great, but,
Yeah, we're trying to like life. Come in here for life.
exactly.
So yeah, it's definitely to attract the eye. Certainly wouldn't argue that. So solid colors, as long as it doesn't have text on it, you guys are feeling good about that.
Or pictures.
Or pictures. See how I was getting sneaky there?
Yeah.
And then is it okay to leave that up till spring when it's warm enough for them to put the new ones on?
Is that the
I
issue?
think
Is
it's
the
okay.
is the
It's too cold outside, yeah. And it's really hard to get off. You need to have like a hair dryer out there with it,
Neighborhood, but I'd recommend that you remove them.
because it'll look kind of bad, for you guys too.
Home core or something.
Yeah. Or maybe put something over it that's solid color. That might be easier. Would that work, you think?
You're saying this is adhering to the window on the
Yeah.
inside, right?
No, this is on the outside.
Oh, these are on the outside?
Yeah.
So
I
you
didn't know
can't
that.
get, because of the weather, it's difficult to get off.
Well, no, I
Yeah,
understood
yeah.
that. I just thought they were on the inside.
And then you can't put the new ones on, so I'm just thinking if there's certain
So what do you
holes.
think, if it stays up to spring, is there a big damage there?
Should be removed if we agree.
If it's not supposed to be there, it should be
Fine.
removed.
Yeah. No, I
Okay.
actually agree with you. So then
Yeah, all right.
solid, what about just solid color over that? Because I think that would work. Is that, yeah? Okay.
But again, you'd need neighborhood approval for that.
Yes, Mark, can you help direct me? Thank you.
Okay, so from here, you got the input, and now go to the neighborhood and see where it goes, so.
Okay.
So, Jen, if you see that, if this is replaced, this photo is replaced with all this lime green, is that acceptable? Okay.
Thank you, Jen.
They'll notice the lime green.
Yes.
You're gonna have to worry about being noticed.
Is the intent then for this to go to the Architectural Review Board and then come back to the Plan Commission for
It's a separate
action?
track as far as I'm concerned, because we don't enforce the neighborhood
Okay,
covenant, so.
so we'll have a motion then. Just wanted to make sure.
So do we need a motion then?
Well-
I would like the minutes at least to reflect action that you're taking, because I've got,
You've got to enforce it.
someone who's, well, there's an enforcement issue and we've had a complaint, so I'd like a document.
So Jennifer, you want to make a motion? You had
So I'll
something.
make a motion to work with, or appear before the architectural review of the neighborhood and remove the graphics and lettered applications on the windows.
And to allow
Place
colored
with
panels?
solid.
And to allow colored panels or panels that have horizontal lines.
Polka dots?
Okay,
Oh, those aren't lines?
No, they're not blind.
okay, so
Those aren't
we,
blinds, those are lines?
is that what I'm?
I thought those were
So
blinds.
We need a
I
second.
guess I need more CBD.
Yeah.
I need anything.
Okay, all right.
I have a question before you move on. So I can see this now that he's gonna ask if he can put graphics or put color here too. Let's just deal with this now. So,
It would be really helpful from, the sun beats down through that, so it'd be really helpful for this type of design there, and whatever you guys would like.
Why isn't there an awning on that side of the building when there is on the other sides?
Because the world's not fair.
I mean, I know it's a more urban footprint, but you
I'm
can design an awning to block the sun.
Yeah, that would take care of some of the problem, and then you could still have the,
There's not a lot of awnings there.
Yeah, so I think it should
Because
be
it's
allowed.
Frank Lloyd Wright, so you gotta have the,
Yeah.
One direction.
you gotta have,
this is how it is. That's how it looks.
So what do you propose, how could he handle those windows? Any ideas here? You can put,
Yeah, would we be,
I would,
Why
That
not
would be-
leave those bigger ones at eye level alone and limit the color to the overhead like he's got them on that or
he's
image?
saying that has too much sunlight that ruins his product.
yeah, so it'd be really helpful if we could get like that lime green on that window, or if there's a different color.
is
All
there,
the colors on those windows are pretty.
is there not some kind of product that you could put on there that would,
If you look in the
could see
store,
through,
it's,
it'd still deflect the light?
there's,
Must be something that,
Yeah.
to protect your product.
yeah, we
All
can, if you
blinds.
guys, so the color would be better for our company, like attraction, right? So that's half the reason. The second is protection of the products.
I
So
understand.
if you guys don't like the solid color on that bottom portion, which, okay, it is bright, I
Yeah.
hear you. So then we can get some sort of tint. There is certainly other options that we have. It's not like we're
Okay.
don't have another option. I was just hoping for the color, but it's okay.
Okay.
I was
So-
hoping you were going to go in that direction.
And
That's,
we'll include the large span on, sorry, which street?
Century.
Century Boulevard, Century Avenue to have, a,
Clear glass?
clear or a window color tinted, darker tinted. type
No
of-
color panels.
No color panel.
Solid color panels.
I don't know how to say it.
Okay, so that's okay with you, Dan?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Now, are we ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as stated by Jennifer and seconded by Dan, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? The motion passes. You got plenty to work with now, so.
What's that?
You got plenty to work with.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't get often a chance to thank you guys. So all of what you do for our city is just awesome. I love Middleton. My first business was at Harbor Athletic Club as a smoothie bar, and so I don't know. I love
that's
Middleton.
you.
Yeah, that's me, man. Bzzz. So thank you, and I'm happy to be back in Middleton.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Tim. Okay, we are on to item number 6, for which we had the public hearing. This is the consideration of request to rezone to general implementation plan for Pleasant View Park Apartments, Greenway Center, lots 3 and 4.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to abstain
Yes.
from discussion
Okay.
and voting on this particular
Okay.
item.
Thank you, thank you. And Dan has a conflict, so he's going to abstain, so. All right, we got a lot of things on this one, so where do you want to get it started? Maybe.
you're going to do the
Just a
graphics.
couple of things in the staff recommendation. One of the items we had recommended was a referral back to PRFC for consideration of the park in lieu of park dedication. PRFC did discuss this, but they didn't specifically take action on this item, which is why I included it as a recommendation. I've since learned from the applicant that they're no longer pursuing that public park, so that referral doesn't need to happen.
Okay,
We are recommending referral to the Airport Commission for a recommendation on the variance for building height. And also eventually the Zoning Board of Appeals would also need to take up the request for variance. We're recommending referral back to Pleasant View Golf Course Committee. The applicant was not present or aware of the first meeting where the golf committee took action, and so it would be nice for them to be able to go and make a presentation to the committee. And then we're recommending that the applicant work with the fire department, and I did get a brief update from Joe about that today too.
okay. And how about water sources management? I mean, when do they go to that?
I don't think that we've received the stormwater plan submittal yet, so I'm not sure that it's ready for water resources yet.
Yeah, I talked with Wade today, and we're anticipating being referred, so if you wanted to do that, we'd welcome that as,
That will be a big issue. I
Yep.
mean, unless
We
it goes
figured
through
that.
the Water Sources Management Board, it doesn't go, so.
so we'd like to, if you're gonna refer us, we'd like to do that as soon as possible. so.
Okay, so I think we should go ahead and, even though they don't have it, so that in the process, we should
Mhm.
refer to them as well, so. Okay, so do you want to make any further presentation?
Sure,
here
I'll
now?
just,
Please identify yourself and,
okay, yep, Joe Lee with JLA Architects.
okay,
We also have Jim Stoppel, representing the ownership group in the audience he'll be available to answer questions as well. I'll do a brief, you've all seen this project before. We were here a couple of months ago. Nothing substantial has changed. We've just progressed the design a little bit, and you asked for a little bit of information the next time we come back as far as views to the site, and we've developed those and wanted to share those with you as well. So one of the things you wanted to see was a site plan with a greater context in play here. So this is the site right on the northeast corner across Pleasant View Road from the golf course at the top of the hill. You all know where that is, but this is a area with the current site plan in it in greater context. And later on, we'll have a key of some views there that shows we've taken about 5 or 6 views from around the site of the project, and you'll be able to see that.
Can I just ask, have you shown that, or this actually, to the people in Bella Casa?
No, we have not.
Have you, so,
So you
but they may
haven't,
not have seen this site plan, and do you know the distance between your building and their building?
I don't know, no, not specifically.
so have you
There's
had,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mayor.
sorry, have you had any neighborhood meetings?
We have not had official neighborhood meetings.
I think
Yeah.
that would have to happen. So that is very essential.
Sure.
And so maybe you can start some of the questions, which people had asked when you were here. One of the big one is the blasting impact. So would it really lead to some of the cracks in the buildings and some of those things because that was one of the big concerns.
Sure, yeah, and understandably so. When you hear about blasting procedures, that has kind of a negative connotation, but that is a construction and technique that's widely used all over, and we've been involved with numerous projects that we've used blasting very successfully. There's various ways. Well, first of all, it's pretty highly regulated as far as criteria and standards that have to be met as far as peak particle velocities and ground vibrations. If blasting is needed, and we're anticipating it would be, we don't know that for a fact or to the extent of how much it would be needed, but we are anticipating it will. It will meet all standards and criteria as far as that goes. We could also, to help curb the anxiety on those type of procedures, monitor the ground during the blasting procedures. That's pretty common, to make sure that those ground vibrations and the peak particle velocities are not exceeded. We could also do pre-blasting surveys where we look at, take a survey of the buildings that are in question before the blasting procedures, and have that documented as their condition, and compare those to, during the blasting procedures and after.
Isn't that standard anyway? Because if you blast and cause damage to a neighboring building, you would be liable to them for a lawsuit for damages, right?
I'm not a lawyer, but I would imagine so. Yes.
Yeah, but it is a good thing.
But the question is to prove that. So to have that.
Right.
They have to document it ahead of time, because we had in the downtown, we had the new development here, and they were doing the piling. And it did, people claim that it led to some of the cracks in their homes, and they're still fighting it. So, and then they have placed some of the instruments there when they went through the phase 2. So I think it will be very important that you actually, the close by building, see how they are, and take pictures and document it, and then what happens afterwards.
Yeah,
But as a general rule, construction methodology is not really within our scope of approval or denial. I mean, that's state building code. and-
Yep.
Right, and it's a common practice, and but again, people that don't do it or aren't familiar with it, I can really understand that anxiety and the worry that we cause. So we'll work with them to mitigate those concerns.
So the other big issue was the environmental impact. I don't know, if there's a...
I guess that's similar. We have, as we develop and build on the site, there's going to be standards and procedures that we have to abide by, or the contractor will have to. We will abide by and conform to all of those. As far as things like stormwater management and runoff, again, those are highly regulated as far as criteria that we'll have to meet, that we're not going to negatively impact the surrounding environment more than the site already does, and that kind of thing. So, you know, their concerns are noted, and we understand them, but they're kind of like in that, like Mr. Paulson said, it's methods of construction and best practices that will make sure that are abided by.
Joe, how does the site slope currently? Do you know?
Yep, yeah. It slopes quite steeply to the southeast.
Southeast, right?
So-
So in the direction of Bella Casa?
Yep, they're about 50 feet, well, it's probably even more. As far as our topo went, to the property line was 50 feet lower than our first floor. That's the drop, so it's probably even a little bit more than that as the.
So I don't know where you are on the design on this, but I mean, to the extent that you can redirect some of that current flow away from the development down below. I mean, that clearly was a concern that was expressed here by some of the residents, and to the extent that you can mitigate that, I think that's
Yep,
that's
yeah,
really
we'll
a selling
definitely look at
point
that.
of, you know, how you're trying to address a current situation which is problematic, and offering up a solution which is a part of your development plan.
Yep, agreed, yep. we'll
I
definitely
think
do
that's a
that.
great point. Now, PPD is our biggest employer, and they are right north of your building, and they had some concerns. I don't know, maybe
There's a couple elevators.
they wrote to you. So that is actually, we do not want to somehow be disruptive of PPD in any situation. So,
Okay.
so they are working with, this is a molecular biology company doing a lot of those clinical trial testing. So they got, I haven't, I don't know what type of a, you know, there's a 4 different types of labs, you know, in terms of how clean they are, whether they're just phase 1, phase 2,
I
or.
think they have clean labs, yeah.
So they got clean labs of various,
Sure.
various levels. So that is something the city would not want to see happen.
Okay.
Because this, the company spend lots and lots of money.
So you're
when
talking about
that-
the potential for construction debris or dust
Yep,
going
yep,
over there?
absolutely, and
Or
any
vibration.
sort of a damage, because that is the largest employer here.
Okay.
And the work which they are doing is very important for the healthcare, so.
Did you say they contacted you already?
Yeah, I think.
Yes,
Okay.
I included it in the staff report. We were contacted not by PPD, but by the owner of the property, which is IRA Capital. They're based out of Chicago. And they expressed concern on behalf of their tenant, PPD,
Okay.
about, you know, particulate matter in the air during construction. They said that they had experienced problems with that in the past with the quarry. And they also said that they have problems with rock falling from that cliff wall without construction and blasting. And so they expressed concerns that that would worsen during construction. I just eyeballed it while we were having a call with them, and it looked like they had about 80 feet at a minimum on top of the cliff. And I don't think that they realized necessarily during the call that their property line extended to the top of the cliff as well. I think they thought the cliff face was probably the edge of the property line, because they mentioned that some of the rock was falling from this site onto theirs, but actually I think it was probably
Falling
from
from their
site
own
onto
property.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, they're our largest employer, so we definitely need to be sensitive
Sure.
to them and anything we can do to limit.
So if you could forward me whoever that contact was?
Sure.
We can make an effort to reach out to them and address their concerns just like the
So
neighbor.
talk to them and talk to this Bella Casa folks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anybody else around there for them to, these are 2
Sure.
big ones, so.
Okay, we will do that.
I guess on that note, on the edges of the site, will you be significantly altering the current site, or will it sort of mimic the landscape as it is at this point? I mean, I'm not sure I have an elevation
Sure.
to be able to tell, or will, and then is the building itself, I mean, I understand that there's levels of parking below, but, for example, on the north part of the site, will that, roadway and grass strip be at sort of the current elevation that the property is at right now? Or will there be any change to that?
That will be slightly different along the north side. You can see we're suggesting a retaining wall there. I think there's a grading plan in the GIP submittal pack.
Was?
Saw some sections of the building, but did see,
So it will be quite a bit lower then? Is that, because the road is going to be lower in any case?
Right, the road will drop down in that point
Yeah, yeah.
as we go towards the underground parking. And then on the south side, and east side, I guess, where that's the existing path, so we have to match grades down there.
right
And
there,
then
okay.
when that new portion of the path kind of curls up, there'll be a little bit of modification. Sorry.
Sorry.
So where the path is, you'll be matching grade there.
How much a slope off from there to the Bella Casa? Where's most of the slope north?
Both.
Bella Casa has that retaining wall there.
Another retaining wall on the south side of the bike. Sorry to interrupt, Jen.
Yep.
No, it's okay.
That
I'm-
is on the
Let me,
south side, yes.
What I'm really trying to figure out is how much you're altering the site
Oh.
other than where the building will be.
Let me.
Topo.
That's important question, so.
There's a topo, sort of.
So this, yeah, let me get a different one up here. That's,
Is there a way you could look
It's in-
or
it's
quickly
in
walk
here.
through that with us? Just to
Submittal.
sure. Okay. So all of the dashed topographic lines here that you see, I don't know if you can you see this little hand there?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can,
Sure,
can.
sure we can.
I don't know if you can discern the dashed topography lines, like right here versus the heavy ones,
Yep.
versus right here. So all the heavy ones are new and all the dashed are existing.
Oh,
So this is all existing slope here to the bike path, and this is all existing, and then this is all new. So most of the regrading from existing is going to come on this side of the building, and where we have this access drive, which the fire department is requiring around the entire building. And then, as you can see on this west side of the site, where the new Pleasant View Road, which is going to be significantly different elevation than it is now, goes back up to the site. So
And that-
most of the slope here is going to be the same.
Uh-huh.
Is what it
That
is now.
slope by Pleasant View will send rainwater towards Pleasant View.
Correct.
And it looks like by the current drainage pattern, right, if you look at there's kind of a little bit of a swale sort of thing in the middle, northwest to southeast. That's what's probably coming down towards them. That would be captured and redirected by the parking lot, would presumably have,
Well, we wouldn't be able to control.
on
you know,
on the
things-
northwest side.
Oh, up here? Are you talking about this?
Yeah, is that
That's a green space.
current? No, those lines.
Oh, the topo? No, the dark ones are new. So the current ones you can see
Current ones, you can
under
see the
them.
thing, the new one, you're gonna
Right,
almost improve the grading.
correct.
I think Michael was actually right. The water is actually, from what I remember, is a big part of this site. It's coming toward that bike path there and going further down.
Yeah, I mean, like Mike asked me before, how's the site slope? And it's, from the high on the northwest to the low on the northeast.
Mhm.
So that's still going to be the case. The water's still going to go that way. and, you know, per Mike's suggestion, and then we're thinking that same way, is, you know, we don't want to make the situation worse. So
But if you-
we'll work to do that, but we can't control, you know, what happens, let's say, from the bike path east. I mean, because that's all going to be the same.
Okay.
That's off of our property.
But if you could help them, like what Michael said, control their water situation, they will be happy.
If you could
Yep.
improve, if you could improve
Yes.
that, Joe.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's a strong.
So you have to try to see that, how can you make things better for them, so.
Correct. Yep. In our, that's in our control, like from on our site, yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So basically, what we're doing is, the hill is high up on the
Yep.
north and west.
Yeah.
It's now going to drop down very, very abruptly into a plateau for our parking, I mean, relatively speaking. And then it'll continue, and then just a little bit more out front, and then it'll continue to just drop down like it does now.
Correct.
So the center part is going to become a lot more flat, dropping on both sides, right? Both the west and the north.
Correct. Yep.
So for you to do anything, it's basically going to be out in front of your building.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Most of that regrading or the new grading is going to be on the northwest side and on the west side where the
But I
grades
mean,
have to meet up the road.
if you do more to try to get the water directed and out of there, it's going to have to drop down a little bit.
Sure.
Then
Yeah,
this is-
we'll-
Where's the detention basin going to be? Or is it going to be underground?
Still working on options for that. So
Yeah, this is all solid rock, so you're not going to have much infiltration there.
Yeah.
So it's,
I was gonna say.
yeah. That's why your water issues would be, those are big.
Either have super
Yes.
rocky soils or super wet soils.
yep.
Yeah.
So stay tuned on the SIP submittal for that.
Okay, so what are, referring to various committees, that's all we're planning to do here now, right?
Yep, our staff recommendation is referral to airport, zoning board, Pleasant View Golf Course, and then continue to work with the fire department.
And you included WRMC as
Oh,
water
yes,
sources?
thank you for the reminder, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
okay, need a-
Second that.
okay. Any,
Can we see the view sheds?
Sure.
I know they're in the package, but
Those are from, so we did not do those. Those
Vanderwall.
Manuel did those, and I don't know their methodology
That's
for that.
using SketchUp in Google Earth KML and distorting. See the distortion on those?
So we use SketchUp too, and so we modeled much of the, and got topographical information from Dane County. We actually got CAD files of their of the topo run, because we wanted this to be as accurate as we can. This is just a photo of that tower that's right across the street.
Yeah.
I don't know if you need this. We don't need to go through all this. So, so we produced 6 views, 5, from off-site looking towards, because that was a main concern, and then another one, the last one that'll kind of show you some of the architectural design as it stands right now. The first one is up here. Let me get you to the little larger view here. First one is up here on Market Street, right in it's escaping me now, but this apartment building in the parking garage looking up towards the building, the foundry. So here you can see that tower in the background, the parking deck here, Foundry Apartments, and our building that steps up over that tree line from that vantage point. That was from right here. The next one would be in the parking lot of Greenway Station from this location, just to get a view from there. And you can see the office building on the left, and then our building coming up above the parking deck again. The third one would be at the intersection of Deming Way and Greenway Boulevard. So heading west in that location. So you can see the glass building here, that same building in the previous view. On the right, whoops, sorry about that. And then again, you're seeing maybe 5 stories of the building above that tree line. So these are actual photographs that we took back in October. The methodology of creating these views is the same that you described, where we got the topo information from Dane County, using SketchUp to produce the massings of the buildings, and then imposing the photo montage of the rendering of our building into this, these are actual photos. They're not Google Earth views, which Van de Waals was. So that was a little bit distorted, and I question the accuracy of that a little bit.
I was shocked that they did that, because, I mean,
I like our view
Google
better.
Street View tends to already smooth out topos anyway.
Yeah.
We did ask to just do it at a very low cost.
Right.
As possible, so that might be why it was probably at the direction.
I mean, it was actually pretty good for what it was.
So, since you're showing these in a public meeting, can you make sure to email them to us so we
Sure.
can have them in the file?
Yep.
Shouldn't it be the developer that pays for a view shed analysis, not the? I'm not sure why we. Anyway.
It's never been a requirement for a project before, and so we just included it as a TIF planning expense.
The next view would be a little further west on Greenway Boulevard, as you call west, with this office building in the foreground. Again, you can see this is an actual photograph. Whoops, testy. The tree line actually comes up in this one, pretty close to the top floor. As you go, I guess it'd be north. Northeast, it drops down a little bit. The grade drops down that way too, so it exposes a little more of the building. But that shows you that. And then the last view, we wanted to show. We knew there was some concern from the golf course about how this building would affect views from their facility. So you can see on the plan that our building is, very far north. The red line here is a view to the Capitol Dome. So that's the angle to the dome of the Capitol. And then across the street here where that arrow is, that's that communication tower. So the building isn't in really direct view of anything from the golf course. So we took a shot. This is existing condition from the patio. And you can see here the communication tower on the left, the Capitol kind of circled on the far right. You can barely see that, but it's there, and it's definitely an amenity. And then the extents of the lake views go from the arrow on the left all the way to the right to the arrow on the right. So that's existing condition from the patio, and albeit this is one shot, but no matter where you go, it'll be a similar view. You can see that this building, it's lower than that communication tower, and it's to the north of the extent of the lake view, and it is in no way impedes on the Capitol at all. No matter where you go on the golf course, that Capitol view will always be preserved from our building at least. So those are the views. And then the last one would be a more close-up view of the architecture as we have it now. And we still have a little bit of design left on this, but as we talked before, more horizontal in nature to help mitigate the height as far as architectural design, and some Frank Lloyd Wright influenced elements. I know there were some chuckles last time, but he has done some tall buildings. So this is where it stands now.
There's one view shed you didn't do. If you go back to the main map.
Sure.
What would the Bella Casa condominium people want you to do? Is the view from their
Casa.
Sure.
casa.
Yeah, we can do that.
And then that's probably the one that I think was bothering the most people. Either that or also then the view from the intersection of Pleasant View and Greenway Road. Because people are
Pleasant
concerned that as
View.
you're coming up Pleasant View,
Right here?
yeah,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
even a little bit north, that, right, because you're at a hill and it's,
Mhm.
but the elevation of that whole road's gonna change anyway,
Yeah.
so it'd be hard to model that.
Well, not from that point. I guess the elevation is changing more to the north.
Yeah, the more drastic changes up in
Okay.
here. But
More
we can
close to
certainly,
the
we can
quarry.
certainly
Right,
provide.
because that's the concern, you're driving and all of a sudden, boom, tall building,
Mhm.
kind of out of scale.
Sure. That's what we have.
Well, I guess, some folks did ask you to consider having fewer stories last time as well. Have you given some thought to it, or what would be the implication?
Sure, sure. Jim, do you want to take that one?
Thank you very much. I'm Jim Staple with Madison Property Management. The topic of the 12 stories versus 14 stories was brought up briefly at the meeting last time. I think we addressed it relative to the assessor Peters, who had gone through the financial projection with the owner, and the economics of the project at that particular time was extremely thin, especially compared to what most developers are looking for as far as a return. And so if you, each time you take it down a story, you've got the fixed cost in all of the land development costs for grading, whatever else it might be. You have this fixed cost for the land itself. You have the fixed cost for landscape. You have the fixed cost for architectural. You have all the fixed costs for soft costs. Every time you put an elevator in, you have a base cost, and yes, you have a small amount for each individual level that the elevator goes up, but it's not near as significant. You have the same cost for the financing that you have to go through, and so each time you can get an additional level, it has a definite impact on your cost, number one. Number two, your higher floors are going to generate your greatest revenues as far as rents. Your lower floors will not afford you the same opportunity for higher rents because of the views that this facility, this location is going to provide you. So that has an extreme impact on profitability and the potential of even making it work. The TIF availability here, when the Assessor Peters went through, assuming we can get to that particular point, was also small relative to the length. There's only 8 years left in the TIF plan, number one. Number two, you have to be able to repay that, and because of the profitability that was involved in the project, that wasn't a significant amount, so that there was a great deal of TIF funds that could be applied for as well. Recognizing Jeff Straubel has owned this land for a long, long time. He isn't a developer coming in and putting together a partnership and getting a developer fee either. So the stories, I think, is it's an extreme positive. Debbie brought up the golf course. For the golf course as well, with the number of people that will probably be using the golf course facility. I looked at your cash flow from the golf course, and it's superb compared to some of your neighbors who can't hardly keep a golf course alive in today's environment. But I would think the golf course would absolutely be enthralled by having another 210 units, similar to what they're at in Florida. They can just about walk off their land and go to the golf course and play golf, or go to the clubhouse and have a nice liquid libation in the afternoon. So I'm hoping that I put a call out to the golf course twice and have not had a reply back yet. I'm hoping we have an opportunity to sit with them, because I think they're looking at a golden opportunity to try to expand their revenues with this facility that would help them immensely. But I got off track. I got off on the 12 versus 14 stories. But the 14 stories are extremely important to make this a viable opportunity for the city of Middleton.
Just to clarify, you're saying that 14 stories is necessary for economic viability at kind of a thin margin, so it would still require TIF at 14 stories.
Yes.
But it would
That's our
require more TIF at 12.
I would certainly think so, yes. But the problem is that at the 12 stories, their economics are going to be actually worse than they are at 14. And so the amount of TIF that we would qualify for and being able to pay it back
Wouldn't
over
be
the
enough.
course of the 8 years would not be anywhere close to enough to offset the difference. Any other questions?
Well, I would still look into it because that is one of the concerns which golf committee, everybody else is, raising. So anyway, look at it again, see if it's possible, so.
I mean, your view shed analysis seems much more robust than the one Vanderwall did, but it makes the building look a lot taller relative to the views than the Vanderwall ones, which seem to show some of it. I mean, and we don't have detailed renderings, but part of it is like, for most of the view, most of this building will be underground or below the slope.
Correct.
That's hard to see because they hear 14 stories and they
Right.
assume 14 stories from ground level flat downtown.
Correct.
Just interject one.
Yeah.
I think when you're looking from Bellicasa, I'm sorry, and
Nope, that's
Joe,
fine.
when you're looking at Bellicasa, you can see that picture where it shows, if we can get the initial one, you have all of the trees. No, the first one you had up, where it showed the aerial view.
Oh, sure.
So you have the trees that are south of the trail. Then you're sitting in their parcel. I'm going to be very shocked if you can see over the top of those trees, because they start out 50 feet lower than even that trail area.
Right.
Then you're looking at a 75-foot tree south of the trail, and then you're having to get on top of the building. So from Bellicasa's patios, I'm going to be shocked if they can see a significant amount of this building.
Of course, a lot of them are concerned about the loss of the green space, but the difficulty is they assume that green space will just always be green space, but it's your private property, so even if you didn't do any development, you could walk in there today, cut down all those trees. No, you're not gonna do that, but you could.
Right.
Right, because we have no ordinance against that.
I think the site per se doesn't really have that many, well, I didn't go inside there, it's, quite a bit of it is without the trees, right, just only shrubs and stuff? Yeah.
Nope, that's fine.
I think this particular view is the one that makes the point that Jim was just talking about. If you look at where Bellicasa would be on this, off on the side, a little bit farther up, and you look at all the trees that they would be peering through to look up at that image, you're gonna see trees, probably.
Yeah, we'll produce that view. We have no problem doing
Yeah,
that,
so
but
just
I think
a-
you're right, because that will be closer, so the view angle, we have to stand back here to get the top of that building.
Yeah, I doubt that
we
their
have to stand
issue is
across.
gonna be image, but I may be wrong, but the one about the concern about water runoff, I think is
Sure.
a bigger one.
That's, the water is going to be the biggest issue
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
Because we're Middleton.
They had the blast in.
One other
Yep.
item on
The blast.
Yeah.
water runoff, if you
Yeah.
look at that view you just had as well, though, they have 50 plus feet that's of their wooded area north of their facility that is their own watershed to take care of.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we have to make sure we don't run more on, but there was some opportunity there, I think, for them to look at their own watershed and see what they could do to help solve it on their own parcel.
Sure. Any other questions for either of the gentlemen? Okay, so the motion is to refer to various commissions, the airport, zoning board of appeals, and the Pleasantview Golf Course and Water Sources Management Commission.
What is our timeframe for trying to get
Yeah, so
some rezoning to council?
thank you for asking that. And Jim can speak to this on the rental side, but the goal here is to be, and I just want to make sure I'm getting my dates correct here, so get out the schedule. The goal here is to have occupancy early August in 2021. It's very critical to hit a lease up, and if you want more details on that, you can chat with Jim. Especially on a project this size and capacity, you know, missing that window can have, you know, dramatic effects on the success of the project. So in order to do that, backing up the construction time frame, we really need to get in the ground, and this is going to sound crazy to you guys. February is our target.
Of 2020.
Correct. Yep. So, so we're really working diligently to address your concerns. You know, we'll work diligently to address Bella Casa's concerns, PPG's concerns, golf course. But the time frame, you know, to get a GDP or GIP approved and then turn around and give you, we're almost set to do an SIP, barring any design changes that we have to do based on feedback we get here and feedback we hear from constituents right away and later on this month in order to get on your agenda again in January to get approval. So that's our really critical schedule. So I don't know if these referrals, I think it's possible if those could be conditions of a GIP approval. We're planning on going to Water Resource anyways and talking with the golf course, but anything that the city and this body can do to help us stay on that schedule would be much appreciated.
Yeah, I would say talk to Bella Casa, talk to PPD Golf, and Water Sources is big. So
correct.
Water Resources that's never determinative of whether we approve the land use. Because the issue is we can approve the land use, go to Water Resources, if they don't approve your stormwater, you're not building anything anyway.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's
not-
either
not-
way. So if it
But it's the
yeah.
concern really of the golf course and the neighbors. It's the land use and density issue.
Well, and I would argue that it would be premature to recommend approval without the zoning board issuing the variance too.
Yeah.
Right. But that can be a parallel track.
Right.
Because if we recommend approval and the zoning board doesn't give you the height variance, you're not getting.
Right. And
I think it's better to wait rather than do any
Yeah.
of that. I think go through the things which we outlined and then we
Mhm.
see where it goes. So any further questions? So we got that
Anything to add on
motion to refer to various commission. All those in
Add
favor of
anything?
those motions say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. So, all right.
Excuse me, can I ask one? The motion passed, if you could read that to
Abby,
Moved by Paulson, seconded by Slavish to refer the development to the following committees: Airport Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, Pleasant View Golf Course Committee, Water Resources Management Commission, and continue to work with the fire department to ensure it meets their needs for emergency vehicle site access.
So we need to get all of those approvals before we come back here? So we have to come back for a final?
yeah, that will be
right.
best, yeah.
I mean, in rare cases, we could forward it to council to decide on the rezoning without our recommendation while we're waiting for everything else. But that doesn't seem to serve your purposes, because then everything we would discuss here would have to kind of be fought out at council, and they don't always, want to take the time in a council meeting, in addition to 1,000 other things,
Right.
to hash through all the issues, because that's what we're for, so.
No, it has to go through the commissions. I think then let's
So
come back here.
we would have to come back here again for the GIP approval,
Mhm.
right? And then again for SIP, and then have to wait for the recording of the GIP, right?
Yeah, I I
Can
don't
do
think
this SAP and GIP at the same time, concurrently.
That's true, yep. I don't think that we've always required the Water Resources Management Commission to take action prior to the GIP. I would think though, Mark, I don't know, is it possible to get this on the zoning board, and Airport Commission at their next meeting, and are they meeting yet this month?
Neither one is meeting this month anymore. The Airport Commission's meeting on January 2nd, and the zoning board is awaiting an application from you.
Good. So.
It would probably meet the end of, the last week of January, or second to last week of January. Zoning board.
Zoning boards.
Airport
So-
Commission is January 2nd.
We could do the
Would it meet
GI,
end of January?
we could do the GIP and SIP simultaneously?
If you have all the i's dotted and the t's crossed.
Okay. Okay, that helps.
Okay, further questions?
Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you. So we are on to item number 7. This is the recommendation for draft City of Milton tax incremental financing policy. I'm really happy that I have been asking for this for years, and finally something is happening. I think since 2008 and 9. So it's, so do you want to cover it? Should you want me to
Yes.
go through this, or?
I have a quick presentation
Okay.
if it's not too late
Yeah,
to
no,
hear it.
it's fine, so-
Mark, could you please pull up the PowerPoint?
Yep.
Thank you. So I apologize, Mayor. I had never heard your request for a TIF policy.
I have been pointing it out multiple times, many times, and
Did the council ever make a motion when you were on the council to do that, or I don't recall that?
I don't know. I'm gonna go back there. So
I don't know that the council ever made a motion. I think what the mayor might be trying to say is that it's informally been talked about.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you could just go and the slideshow, please.
Yeah, we had some extensive discussion.
Sorry,
It's on the slideshow tab and then from beginning.
and I'm just trying to find the, I haven't
It's
been
Up,
On the
up
bottom?
in the menu
up,
slideshow.
yeah, I'm sorry.
From beginning,
Yeah,
or
I got it.
F5.
Okay,
It's been a while since I've used PowerPoint.
so you can go to the next one. So, I, from my background, in this position, this is a staff recommendation because I had never heard it discussed until more recently. So I apologize, for the misunderstanding. But, this is something that, our TIF team, which is comprised of me, Bill Burns, our finance director, and also our city administrator, Mike Davis. In the last few months especially, we've started discussing the need for a TIF policy. The reason for this is to set clear expectations, to encourage consistency in review, and to provide transparency in the process. The city has successfully used TIF financing for decades. We have primarily used the TIF project plans, which are approved by the Department of Revenue, as well as the Joint Review Board that oversees the TIF districts, as guidelines, but we've never had a formalized policy specific to how we treat requests for TIF assistance in the city. When we mentioned it before the council, we did hear some council members express support. I would note that most of what is included in this draft policy is actually spelling out what the current practice is for reviewing TIF applications, and so what I would like to focus on is the changes from what the current practice is. I think most of the people on the Plan Commission, as well as the council, are familiar with the process, but this just focuses on the changes. So, TIF is a financing tool cities can use to increase property tax revenue from new development or redevelopment in an area in order to pay for public infrastructure projects or economic development projects in the TID. I want to point out that nothing in this policy would preclude the Common Council from approving or disapproving any TIF requests as it deems appropriate. This is intended to be guidelines. The hands of the Common Council should not be tied, and therefore they can, at their sole discretion, choose to differ from the recommendations in the policy. And then the City of Middleton shall evaluate all TIF requests using the but-for standard and utilizing a financial gap analysis. Some of the key sections in the draft policy. Section 1 includes TIF goals. There are 11 goals within that section. Many of those are goals that we've talked about heavily. And the one that I really wanted to draw your attention to is number 7, which is mitigating climate change and adapting to our changing environment. I think that the City of Middleton is probably a leader in the state in using TIF for this purpose. We've been asked to give presentations for the League of Wisconsin Municipalities regarding our use of TIF to incentivize solar. We also recently were mentioned in a presentation by the mayors from Fitchburg and Madison on a panel discussing how cities can use economic development tools for this purpose. So we would like to propose that we ramp it up a bit, even take it a step further. And so I'll talk about that a little bit later. Section 2 includes our TIF policy guidelines. There are 9 guidelines in that section. Just want to draw your attention to spelling out number 1, the city's preference for developer finance methods of assistance. We have in the past provided upfront TIF, and this policy would not preclude upfront TIF, especially in cases of affordable housing development where it sometimes is a requirement. But we would like to state that the city has a preference for developer finance. That's where the developer goes out and borrows the money, and then over the life of the TIF agreement, the city repays the developer annually after the taxes are paid. We also would like for the policy to include a stated preference for redevelopment projects over greenfield developments. I mentioned this earlier. Redevelopment projects have a lot more challenges associated with them, including potential soil contamination, demolition of existing structures, and also that there is a base value already in place. And so whatever is redeveloped, there has to be that incremental value to create additional value to be able to support a redevelopment project. We included a goal to minimize the percentage of increment applied to a development project. That always has been the city's goal. When we enter into a TIF negotiation, we desire to keep as much of the increment to support the general projects within the TIF. We have also found projects that require 100% of the TIF increment in order to move forward. So there is always a balance, but the goal is to minimize the percentage of increment applied to a development project. And then we would seek design incentives that will increase the chances of securing state or federal funding. This especially comes into play with regard to low-income housing tax credit developments. We recently reviewed a TIF request for the 3810 Jacob Klein development. In order for a developer to be competitive with the WIDA application, they get points for having TIF support or support from a municipality. And so that helps the city leverage the TIF incentive to bring in outside sources of funding, and we support that. In section 3, we outline TIF project types and costs. The types of projects that would be eligible include, but are not limited to, redevelopment projects, expansions, and renovations, like the city recently did with the Chartwell development on Deming Way. The types of greenfield uses that we would really want to look at for TIF would be research and development, medical uses, light manufacturing, mixed use, and also affordable housing developments, and historic preservation and adaptive reuse. In the TIF eligible project cost sections, under sustainable building practices, the city has mostly used TIF to incentivize solar PV, and then more recently on the Tresta development, the city uses TIF to incentivize Purple Pipe reclaimed water system. We brainstormed with our sustainability coordinator, and we came up with a long list of other things that we would propose the city consider. One is whole building energy modeling for new construction and building retrofits. Kelly Hilliard, our sustainability coordinator, will be at the finance committee meeting and council meeting to describe how this can really have a huge impact on the energy use within a building and can mean more for reduction in energy use even than including renewable energy on a project. And then we have some other ideas like green roofs, blue roofs, etc. The types of projects that would not be considered TIF eligible or that our staff doesn't recommend are considered TIF eligible are typical market rate housing on greenfield sites. This would be a pretty significant departure from the way that the city has handled TIF in the last 5 or so years, because there have been several greenfield market rate housing developments that have received TIF support. Our recommendation, based on our review of 8 to 10 TIF policies in other communities, would be to really minimize the amount of TIF that the city is providing for market rate housing on greenfield sites.
And I think that's really good. That's good.
But we also want to give the flexibility, and so we included a line to say that market rate housing projects would be evaluated on a case-by-case basis and may be considered for assistance to the degree that they demonstrate a financial gap and promote the city's TIF goals. Obviously, the Pleasant View Park project was on the agenda tonight. You don't see many buildings that include 2 and 3 levels of underground parking. Those, from our perspective, would be considered potential extraordinary development costs. The first level of underground parking is becoming pretty common in new construction multifamily. And so we're viewing that less as an extraordinary cost, and that is reflected in the action of the council over the last 5 years. I can't think of an example where they have approved TIF for market rate housing on a greenfield for underground parking. That just hasn't been done in the last 5 years at least. The last example that I am aware of was the Foundry building. And in that case, it was only for a portion of the costs. So other project costs that are not TIF eligible, land costs that exceed market costs, ordinary or typical development costs, energy efficiency improvements. That's like high quality insulation and LED lighting and things like that, that 10 years ago the city might have provided assistance for. They're now very standard in the market. Okay, Section 4, application and approval process. The city has never had a formal application for TIF assistance. This has caused confusion on the part of the applicant, and we think that this will help define the process better and get all the information that we need to fully review a project up front. We also are recommending a review fee of $1,000. Based on the other cities' fees, this is minimal.
Cheap.
As it relates to the amount of staff time that is involved with reviewing these projects. We have an active TIF request that we're working on now, and we had our 4th meeting with the developers yesterday. So that's the entire TIF team, the applicant. Also, we consult with our city assessor. We work with our TIF engineer as well as our TIF planner, and in some cases, we even consult with our building inspection staff and our public works staff to fully understand whether or not a cost that is being proposed is an extraordinary development cost, because we don't have the expertise of our code, our building code folks to know whether something is required by code or if it is indeed extraordinary.
How'd you come up with that?
So we looked at the other fees within our department. For the Zoning Board of Appeals, they have a $300 application fee. And we kind of looked at what other cities are requiring for a TIF application fee. I didn't see any fees that were higher than $1,000 in any other communities that we reviewed. I think an argument could be made that there's certainly more staff time that goes into it, but at the same time, the fee doesn't in any way commit the city to any approval of TIF assistance, and so we want to make sure that we're still being friendly to, to development projects and supporting economic development.
So Abby, did you guys look at other communities kind of in Dane County and what they do, in particular the city of Madison?
I was just talking to Kurt about this before the meeting. We don't have Madison's TIF policy. We looked at,
I can tell you what their fee structure is.
What is
and
their
that is 0.5% of the TIF ask.
okay.
And so, and you know, and you can say, well, and it's non-refundable. So if you're asking for $1 million, that's a $5,000 non-refundable fee.
Wow.
And what's interesting about that, and I can't believe I'm arguing for this because as a developer, but I think part of the rationale is it does separate kind of the tire kickers from those that are really serious about their development project and the need for TIF. So I'm not saying that's right for Middleton. I'm just saying that I think there is some merit and methodology to those fees. Now, you might choose to make exceptions for affordable housing projects that, you know, will always have a gap. You know, you could make exceptions to that fee structure. But, I mean, again, it's another benchmark for what others have done. And I don't think it's ever discouraged a developer from pursuing TIF. If they have a gap on a project, a real demonstrated gap, paying a $5,000 fee or a $10,000 fee, I don't think that's going to stop a developer from making the ask. Just my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good information. I have a copy of sitting at home, but that's old, I think from maybe 5, 6, 7 ago.
I mean, we're open to changing the fee if that's something that the commission would like to recommend. I appreciate the comment about, you know, separating the people who are really serious with proceeding. We felt that in our discussions, the 1,000 would have probably ruled out a couple that we have had over the last few years. And remember that this committee and also the council doesn't see most of the TIF requests that come forward to the city, only the ones that decide to proceed with a request. So this review fee would apply after the pre-application meeting. If they decide to proceed, they would pay the fee before any additional review would happen.
So, Michael, do they have a minimum too or 0.5% fee?
No, I don't think so. It's been a few years, but I mean, I think that's their standard formula, Mayor.
Okay.
There's no minimum.
Something to look into, so.
Another significant change that our staff is recommending is that the Plan Commission involvement in reviewing a TIF request is related to the land use and to the planning aspects of the project rather than to the amount of TIF assistance to be provided for a project. This is much different from the way that the city has operated over the last few decades, but it's quite similar to the last couple of recommendations that the commission has made, where this group has not felt comfortable making a dollar figure recommendation because you haven't seen the financial details. Instead, this group has made a recommendation that the project has extraordinary costs. And the other benefit of this method is that rather than having 3 meetings where publicly a request is being reviewed and discussed, this would take place at the Finance Committee meeting primarily. There would be a presentation made by the developer, and then the committee would have the opportunity to go into closed session to discuss the detailed financial documents. Those would be subject to open records requests, but we wouldn't be opening the books to anyone and everyone. And then any action that the Finance Committee takes on the project would be in open session. And then we listed some project evaluation criteria within the TIF policy draft. That's all I wanted to point out, but I did want to thank Kurt because he was willing to meet with us and discuss some of our ideas early on and help us out with that, but then also he provided some detailed comments which incorporated into a revised draft and sent out to everyone here this morning. I also have a printed copy, a marked up version that you can look at as well.
Yeah, those were good comments, Kurt. I looked at them too. So Well, I'm really pleased after a long time, so we will have a TIF policy. So did you look at so you said you didn't look at the TIF policy for medicine. Did you look at any others?
Yes. We looked at, let me see if I can quick. So the policies that we reviewed are Bergen Sun Prairie plus
Lacrosse season.
Lacrosse, yep. Actually, we did have Madison's, but I don't remember reviewing it in detail. Milton, Stoughton, and Wauwatosa.
So that's pretty broad. So they are somewhat similar then? Or,
Yeah, we kind of tried to take aspects of each that we liked, and every city uses TIF differently, and reviews TIF projects differently, so we sort of tried to aspects that we liked from other communities, but also tried to keep with our standard review process for the most.
okay, questions. I'm actually happy that there is something in writing rather than just case by case as it was desired by some folks. So I think this is really a great improvement from where we were. So, any questions?
I support the recommendations and the edits. I think they seem very reasonable. There was one question I had about, let me maybe keep moving and I'll see if I can find it again, but it looks good, Abby.
Yeah, I think this looks great, and, you know, comments that you provided, Kurt, I think were great additions. My only question was under kind of that same portion of the application and review fee, the inserted language about, upon request, the city will provide applicants with appropriate discount rates, interest rates, cap rates. My suggestion would be is that I don't think the city wants to get, you know, in that position where they're making recommendations as to what they think these metrics should be. And now, if you wanted to leave that language and just instead of upon request the city may provide versus will provide,
Yeah.
I think that's a softer way, because I
That
think it's
makes
gonna put a
sense.
lot of burden on staff, Abby.
Mm-hmm.
You know, having to come, well, what cap rate should I use? Well, you should use this cap rate, or this interest rate, or this inflation factor.
Yep.
For something
Yeah.
that's forever, I mean, changing all the time, I don't think it's really fair to have staff be burdened with providing that information to developers. You should merely react to what they provide to you and determine if that's reasonable or
It's
not,
appropriate or not.
based on where you understand the market to be at that particular point in time.
Experience shows, that's good. Thank you, Michael. Any other,
Yeah, so,
Katie?
so one of the reasons I suggested
you
adding
had-
that is because, you know, Bill has shown me a couple of different TIF requests that have all come in around the same time, and they all used a different cap rate and a different property, and they're similar projects, and so in some ways the assessor is, when he or she's running what the increment generation is gonna be, is already doing that, saying, you know, and our current assessor is using a higher cap rate than Paul Musser did, and a kind of lower inflation growth factor. And that's fine, but it's like, they should know ahead of time, if the assessor's gonna use an 8% cap rate and a 2% growth rate, then it just saves them time to not have to
Well,
rerun that.
put in a guideline, so.
Yeah, and that's why I said just, I
May
think I would
is right,
soften it
yes.
just a little
Yes.
bit, Kurt. I don't.
Yep.
Give yourself the option to do it or not, if you choose.
Right.
That's all.
Gurdeep, you asked me
Yes.
if I had any comments. I too thought that this was very well done, and I was very impressed with just quickly going through Kurt's additions today. The one thing that I was questioning was under Section 4, application and approval process. Number 5, the Plan Commission. The way it's worded, it sounds like the Planning Commission shouldn't be involved or know what's going on or anything. It says, normally the Plan Commission will not review TIF requests. I think you mean they don't review the financial part of it.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
think we need to say that. But basically, my thought was, how would we know that it's in compliance if we don't see it, so. I think the
Yeah.
planning commission needs to review them.
So our recommendation was that Plan Commission review the project, whether the land use is appropriate, whether, if a rezoning is being requested, at least provide concept approval that the city should move in this direction to rezone land or offer a conditional use permit before the applicant is able to take a TIF application forward to the finance committee and the city council. If the project is already permitted on the land use, so if there's a building proposed on University Avenue and it meets the height requirements and it meets all the zoning requirements, we suggested that there wouldn't be a need for it to come to Plan Commission prior to going to the Finance Committee, but the Plan Commission would still hold, design review approval and all of the other things that are not related to the TIF, reviewing the layout of the site, the aesthetics, the detail, all of that would still come to the Plan Commission. The only thing that wouldn't be coming is that there is a TIF request associated with this project and.
How much that would be?
Yeah.
Still, everything else would still come to the.
Yeah. And Kitty, I tried to change staff word from Plan Commission will not review to normally we will not review. Obviously, upon referral, we can review, whether it, as we've done before, that it's advantageous to the layout of this area that the developer is able to get 4 stories instead of 2, or structured parking, or environmental features, so.
Yeah, I think the first part of it is fairly clear. The last sentence says, normally the Plan Commission will not review the TIF requests. And I just think what we need to do is clarify that sentence so that it says prior to the financial committee review, or something that would
Right, but the,
not make it sound like we're not gonna look at anything.
Okay, so how is it done in
Well-
others?
but the
Madison?
TIF is only finance.
Yeah,
The
TIF
TIF
would
element
only
is
go to
only
the
finance.
TIF part would only go to the finance under our proposal.
But
No other Plan Commission in the county reviews TIF requests, because the TIF component is only the money side.
Strictly the financial end of it. As close as we would
Yeah.
come on a plan commission would, what does it fit, does the TIF request fit into our comprehensive plan, our goals, and so from that planning standpoint.
Yeah, it's already,
And I like Kurt's changes, because I could see, I like him adding the sentence about normally the plan commission would not review TIF requests, because I could see a scenario where a proposal came forward and it was permitted and it fit the site and the plan commission moved it through the process, but what if it's not the highest and best use for land? What if it's not exactly what the city wants to see on that site?
Yeah.
If that were the case, maybe the council would have some questions about that, or the finance committee, and they would refer it back to the plan commission for consideration of some
Yeah.
aspect of the project. So I think that's a good catch.
So, Michael, in your experience, is that what's with the other cities, including Madison? Because
Yeah, planning
Okay.
commissions don't
Okay, all right.
chime in on the appropriateness of the TIF award or just land use issues like we've talked about.
Okay, any other questions or just
I
Jennifer?
identified what my question or comment was, so I'm at section 3. The following project costs may be TIF eligible if they meet the city's TIF goals. So items 3 and 4 talk about remediation of soils that are contaminated. I guess I was wondering, we talked a lot today about water and different components of, flooding have occurred. Have you thought about something about that within this? Yeah.
Yes.
in recovery from flood damage.
That could be one of the items. I was thinking more about, if there would be issues with a project where they're maybe doing some redevelopment anyway, and it has to do with water runoff being an issue in the site or something like that.
That is a very good question. I think, Kurt, you are the one that brought this up a couple of meetings ago where you asked, could on TIF projects could the city require 100% stay on rather than 90%? I met with our city attorney and I discussed that with him.
State law is 90%.
State law is 90%, but in the case of a TIF project where the city
'Cause
has
it's
some
negotiated in the
discretion
developer's
and
agreement.
reward, could we use that as a negotiating tool? And his opinion was that we could if we were prepared to incentivize the additional costs of going from 90% to 100%. There actually is a project currently that is proposing drainage to Graber Pond, which we know experienced flooding and is still flooded. And we thought that if we were to include something like that, that might be one of the projects we would really want to take a look at that. So I would support adding that as a TIF eligible project cost, like stormwater management above and beyond the normal.
Above the,
Of the state mandated 90%.
Yeah.
for the city or county, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so then we just need a recommendation.
Move to recommend approval to the council and the finance committee.
I second it. Okay, any further question or comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the next item is the project updates. Maybe anything?
Thank you.
Oh, you did.
So Dan asked that this be added back to the agenda, just to do some brief updates at the end of maybe every other plan commission meeting. This is something a former commissioner, David Reed, asked us to do.
Yep.
So just some quick updates about a couple of projects, if you want to go to the next slide, Mark.
So pretty though, it's so bleak outside.
So you'll recall that the Plan Commission played an active role in reviewing the High Site development, which is at the
Yeah.
corner of Pleasant View Road and Airport Road. You can see the architectural renderings. This was taken at their ribbon cutting event, and the company is moving into the building over the next few weeks. This is their grand opening. Just as a reminder, this is a 90,000 square foot office. It's a world headquarters for High Site. 220, I'm sorry. High Site already had a 220,000 square foot distribution center in Middleton, which played a key role in their decision to locate their headquarters in Middleton. They will start out with over 250 employees at this office building, and they expect to grow to over 500.
And we incentivized that, didn't we?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, the city provided TIF for this development. It included TIF for structured parking, which we still are viewing as an extraordinary development cost for office buildings. And then also they have a large solar array. And then there were some economic development incentives associated with the project.
Yeah, it really looks good. We were there
It's
at their
beautiful.
opening, so.
Turned out great.
I went to the mayor as well, went to the ribbon cutting. I don't know if anyone else did.
We didn't get an invitation.
I was struck by the diversity of the workforce and how strong their presence is in South America. I wasn't aware of that, and
Yeah, most of their business for their Royal Prestige cookware line takes place in South America, and most of the people who are employed at their call center speak Spanish. So it's a diverse workforce. They really have a family-first culture, and it's really been cool to get to know their company. And then the other thing I wanted to talk briefly about, and I know it's late, the city has been working on health in all policies. This is through a grant that we were a recipient of as part of the Green Tier Legacy Communities Group, which is a statewide group of cities, counties, and also state organizations and nonprofit organizations that are working on sustainability. And this grant will allow the city to receive health and all policies trainings, of which we have been participating in over the last couple of years. If you want to go to the next slide, we're partnering with the Center on Wisconsin Strategy, or COWS, as well as the Population Health Institute on this project. And the goal is to develop and implement sustainability measures and to incorporate public health and health equity into all of our city policies, processes, and decisions. Eventually, we would like to select a project that we can actually do a formal health impact analysis on, and we are kicking around the idea of using the community campus concepts as that project, largely because the staff who have been involved in the health and all policies include our city administrator, our library director, all of our planning staff, including our sustainability coordinator and our rec director. And we were at one of these trainings and we started thinking that the community campus project might be the project which all staff would be involved in. It would give us all an opportunity to become trained on performing a health impact analysis. Also, I think that there is some sentiment in the community that that project timeline that we laid out is maybe a little too aggressive. So we thought that by scaling it back a little bit, using the health impact analysis, which could take 6 to 9 months for us to perform, along with the assistance we get through this grant, that would give us some additional opportunities for public input along the way, and then would push any decision on a concept back to later next year, rather than early next year, which we're starting to feel might be a little pressed.
Too aggressive.
Yeah. And then if you go to the next one, Mark. Yeah, you can just skip over that. The last thing I just wanted to remind you all of is that on Saturday, January 25th, we're having our annual retreat. It's an opportunity for the Committee of the Whole, Common Council, and the Plan Commission to get together for 4 hours on a really cold Saturday morning. You do get breakfast included, and then discuss in depth a range of projects that we're working on. And we're thinking for the retreat, the projects we'd be looking at would be the community campus plan. We've invited our consultants to make an extended presentation on the 3 concepts, which have changed since the ones that were printed in the Middleton Review about 3 more times. So we want to make sure that we can get you an updated concept presentation and you have an opportunity to react. Also, the TAPE policy, if it has already been adopted by this meeting, our goal would actually be to have 3 scenarios and then kind of walk through how to implement the policy during this. And then, of course, we will include flood recovery on the agenda and likely the airport master plan if there is an update to be made at that. And that's all I have.
Good job. Any questions for Abby or any comments? Great job, Abby. So need a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? So we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
It's getting past my bedtime.